Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Puck comes across the ice. Kent Johnson intercepts, backhands it ahead. Sillinger, short-handed chance for the shot, and he scores! Cole Sillinger gets it on the breakaway and gives the Blue Jackets a 1-0 lead. And now the Devils race after a loose puck. It's Jack Hughes down the right wing side, across the line, cuts to his left with a shot. He scores! Jack Hughes, speed and creativity, and it's a 1-0 lead.
And the pitch swung on. A high pop in the infield. The shortstop, Rocchio, near second. And drops the ball. He dropped the ball. It rolls to right field, and everyone's going to be safe. Torres scores, and the Yankees take a 1-0 lead. And here's the 1-1. Line, base hit over third, down the left field line, rolling to the left field corner. One run has scored Volpe. The other runners go to second and third with no one out.
Yeah, I don't think we could be more excited. We love being an underdog, and that's how a lot of people persuade Nebraska as an underdog, and that's fine. We like it that way. And going into their stadium and their place, and it'll be a fun environment. Look forward to put up our best fight and go win the game.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. No underdogs to be found here, DB. What's up? Are you an underdog or like the cartoon?
I used to like the cartoon.
Big underdog guy?
Yeah. Am I confusing underdog with Hong Hong Fooey, Shane? Who was the dude that changed from a janitor or an engineer?
I don't
Is that Hong Hong Fooey?
I think so.
I like underdog too. I used underdog as a gift once.
I'm unfamiliar with Hong Hong Fooey.
Hong Hong Fooey. He's a karate chopping dog.
I mean, that makes sense.
Well, you didn't know he was a dog, did you?
I was guessing by context with underdog.
Oh, big. Can I pet that dog? No, Hong Hong Fooey is different than underdog.
Right, but since you were confusing underdog with Hong Kong
assumed
I assumed they were both dogs.
Is that genus or species?
Species.
Same species.
Canines.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah, that would be like confusing like Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt with Scooby-Doo.
Maybe.
Do you know Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt?
I'm assuming Dino Mutt's a dog based on the name.
Your deductive reasoning is real sharp this
Off
morning.
the charts, baby.
Yeah, right off the rip. You showing me those brains.
Scooby-Doo, also a dog.
Yeah.
I'm aware of him, though.
Very good. Is that your
The mystery machine?
Is that your Miller education kicking in?
Yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to go
your
anywhere
principal?
else, so.
Who was your principal?
So I had what was his name? Workmeyer.
Okay, so you got the tail end of him.
Yeah. Well, beginning and end, really. He wasn't there very long.
Yeah.
Because he was from Benson originally and then came over to Millard North. My favorite, though, was the guy. He's at Millard West now, Mr. Tiemann. He was my senior principal.
Yeah.
That's my dude. I love Mr. Tiemann.
So Mr. Tiemann went from Millard North to Millard West?
Yep. I forgive him because we still love him. But
well, it's okay.
No, listen, he was going for the big job. I get it.
Oh, he
was my senior principal then.
Okay, so that was 9?
No, I don't know when he left, but I was there in 05.
Okay, so 05 was your last year?
Was my senior year, yeah.
Just a pup.
So he was our senior principal, and then a few years later, he got the big head principal job at Millard
So
West.
that was the big job then.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I respect the hustle.
So how come you just don't love Millard?
Because I'm a Millard North guy.
Oh.
Millard people don't like.
No.
We don't ride for Millard.
Who you telling?
I mean,
there's
real animosity
one
between
of my
schools.
very, 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 very good family friends. My mom used to babysit her daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Is on Millard School Board.
Yeah.
And I believe her daughters are all in education. Brittany, Lindsay, and Chelsea.
So when you put it down to it, we would probably ride Millard against other people.
Yeah.
But like in the minutia, like there's not a lot of love between the three Millard schools.
No,
I
think that's a thing.
And also,
I don't think the Monarchs are sending the Titans flowers and Chieftains and Thunderbirds.
If you want to get real specific about it, the Millard West and Millard North kids will gang up on the Millard South kids. That's a real thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then is it everybody against private?
Everybody against prep for sure. I don't think anybody has real strong feelings
How do we
about
differentiate between prep and Scott? Or
it's
Ron
Class
Colley?
B, so they never play them.
or Gross or
Miller North never plays those teams, so like
or Duchesne.
They don't care.
Or Brownell.
Don't get a lot of Brownell rivalries with Miller North.
I got a good friend at Brownell Talbot.
I think my cousin went to Brownell.
I saw his parents. I saw the Scribners last year at the Jet Awards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had one cousin, same family. One cousin went to Brownell. The other one went to Miller North.
Really?
Yep.
I saw a Brownell alum at Elkhorn South. What's that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was married to my buddy. And she has kiddos at Elk South.
Yeah.
And her good friend is Sarah Sinclair, who's Bryson's mom.
Yeah, the only time Miller North people or Miller people think about Scott is when they have friends that opt to go there. But since they're different classes, that's not something that crosses our radar pretty much ever.
Like, you mean grade classes?
No, like A, B.
Oh, gotcha,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Like when you never play those teams. So it's kind of like, all right, whatever.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to, like, have a guy pop up on the – you'd pick a Miller North guy that you've recruited to be on your team to get behind you and come on camera and be like, he's riding with me. Oh, hey, Devontae, how we doing? Was that not the corniest thing ever? You probably
yeah.
Who would? No, okay, so this is funny.
Yeah.
And you're going to alienate some people.
100%. It's not like I don't on anyway.
Who are you picking
to pop up behind me?
Yeah, at Miller North.
Like a football guy?
It's your choice.
Or just anybody.
You love everybody over there.
I mean, I do love everybody over there. We'll give a shouts to my guy Jermaine.
All right. No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So he's not coaching anymore. He's like in the real big boy world.
He's still coach. So he's over at, I believe he's doing Scut basketball this year. He's been
I know he's been
at Scut for a couple years.
I'm well aware.
Yeah.
But he's black. I know him. I'm just kidding.
No, he's black and from Omaha. You definitely know him. He's black. He's from Omaha, and he's worked in a school. There is 1,000% chance you know him.
And he's one of those guys that changed professions late.
Yeah.
Like 180.
Yeah.
Why?
He had always wanted to become law enforcement, and I know he had tried earlier in his life, and it hadn't worked out for whatever reasons. Like that hiring process is a lot harder than people think.
Yeah, but guess what? It's nowhere near as hard as firemen, and we need law enforcement. Like
100%. Like
I got a lot of those guys, like those graduating classes lately.
Yeah.
Low.
Well, and I appreciate that he went into it because, like, I know him. He's a good dude, and like you need good dudes in those hard jobs.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fire.
He seems like he would be the king de-escalator.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
That's cool.
Like everybody just needs to chill.
That dude loves kids.
Everybody just needs to chill. No, Jermaine's a good dude. I'll ride with Jermaine.
Unfortunately, it's people that don't care and are breaking the laws probably don't care about people's smiles, but he has a very engaging demeanor.
Yeah, he is.
It's disarming.
I do think it helps, like just being a disarming person in general.
Yeah.
Because most people, I know, despite what people think, most people in those situations want it to go well. They're in a weird spot that the cops have been called,
yeah.
Right? Like they're not having a good day. But most of them want that to end well.
No, I'm with you.
Right? So I think when you have a guy like Jermaine who's like very disarming and he's very engaging, he's charismatic and can like make everybody feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I know that's not characteristics we normally associate with law enforcement, but it's super useful to have.
Sounds a lot like Voight as a manager for the Guardians. It's very engaging.
You want a nice disarming guy.
At no point when they were doing dugout interviews did I feel like he felt like they were in any real trouble. You guys are about to be down 0-2.
They're in a little bit of trouble.
That's fine. I mean, no series happens until the road team wins.
Yeah, sometimes.
So
sometimes the road team doesn't win, and that series ends.
Guardians would be all right if situation that they got a hit with guys in scoring position. They had the Yankees in trouble all night.
Yeah,
and just
didn't happen.
Kind of like Shane, he couldn't perform.
It's because he hasn't been to game day men's health like we have.
That was a different kind of.
Oh,
hey, listen. You're still my dude. That's
can I
not
tell
what
you
I was
something
talking
though?
about.
That's
Shane.
fine.
I just meant sometimes you have stage fright when people are around.
Some people don't like
That's what I meant.
No, it's
That's
not.
what I meant
No, it's
too.
not. No,
yes.
No, it's not.
I was talking about anxiety.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I
got chills throughout my body.
I flipped through that. Look, that is so corny. You're corny, Rogers. Corny. Oh, there was such a surprise to Patty McAfee.
I'm sure a 40-year-old coming off an Achilles and a 31-year-old who hasn't been good all
Okay,
year.
haterade.
That's
that deep down body.
They're
hate.
going all in.
No, this morning is about love.
What do we love this morning?
We were loving everything. People want us to problem solve.
Let's solve some problems then. We're talking about schools.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.
Here you go.
No, I'm serious. Let's talk about it.
Here you go.
Because everybody seems to have everybody's real good at pointing out problems. I haven't seen a lot of people provide even bad solutions.
Wait, do I need my seatbelt?
No, I would love to.
Hey, this message is brought to you by NDOT. I'm going to stay off my phone. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to
make it click.
And don't throw a penalty on me for using the seatbelt gesture.
It wasn't for that. It was pulling the shirt up. That was the problem.
He's showing you his abs.
Sure.
Hater.
I just love how PJ Fleck's like, everybody in the country does that. And he goes, it's not the sword. Nobody cares about the sword.
So here I am. I'm going to click it. I like PJ Fleck. But I've said that for 15
I need him
since he's been at Minnesota. By the way, nice Minnesota colors.
I need him to wear adult.
Shout out Papillion Monarchs, you big Tim Williams guy.
I actually am. I've only talked to him the one time.
I like how the longer that you do this job, diplomacy is at an all-time peak for you, because you have to be professional, right? You have allegiances, but you can't.
Yeah, I can still like other people.
Yes, I've been telling people that for years.
Like, listen, Miller North plays Papillion. I want Miller North to kick their head in. I can still like Tim Williams.
Yeah,
easy peasy.
Shout out Monarch colors.
Yeah, I just like this color, red. No.
Your polo zip-up game is, as my man Carell Buckhalter would say, strong.
Strong.
Enterprise, Mississippi, baby.
I like,
We need to scratch.
I like a good quarter zip.
A quarter zip?
A quarter zip. Well, I was trying to be like him. I'm not from Mississippi, though.
Game day, men's health.
Are the older guys going to take it?
Okay, sorry. I'm buckled.
You buckled in?
Yeah.
Well, I've heard a lot of people talk about the problems with the NSAA and high school football here. And
I'm kind of over it now. If we're going to have this conversation, we're going to have it.
Let's have the conversation. I want to have the conversation because I've heard a lot of people point out the problems. I have not heard a lot of people point out solutions. And I know you're in the solutions business. So let's get into the solutions business.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
Let's go, baby.
Because this week, obviously, we had the Miller South Lincoln High thing last week.
Yes.
This week, Benson has forfeited the remaining 2 games on their schedule. So this isn't a thing that's going away.
Correct.
So let's get in the solutions business, DB.
What's on your mind? You seem a little aggressive.
Well, I think that a lot of people think that there's a really simple, easy solution to this, and there just isn't. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there's an easy solution to this because enrollment numbers and participation numbers aren't the same thing.
Are you talking about within said school?
Yeah.
Like
enrollment numbers in a said school are not the same as participation numbers in a said school, especially activity by activity, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you're supposed to predict that if you're the NSAA. I don't know how you're supposed to predict whether or not you're going to have a bunch of kids with open enrollment go to different schools. We saw that with Benson a couple years ago when their coach goes from Benson to Central, lost a bunch of dudes after that seemed like they had some positive momentum in their football program. All of a sudden, that's gone out of nowhere because a guy takes another job and a bunch of kids want to follow him. Not disparaging the kids or the guy, but that's what happened, right? And so
just thought better opportunity.
100%. And listen, I was just talking about it with Mr. Tiemann. Love that dude. Saw better opportunity.
Shout out, Mr. T. Would I know him if I saw him?
Yeah, he's a tall guy. I
know lots of tall people. Like
he's
might
like,
as well have said.
He kind of like. Yeah, I don't know if you would know him if you.
All right, shout out.
He's a good dude though.
I know a lot of people in education across districts.
Greg, good guy.
Which also enables me to have this conversation
because it's different district by district too.
It also enables me to have this conversation without feeling so one-sided.
So you're dealing with. I'm going to see if I can count them up here. Right, you're dealing with OPS, Millard, Papillion, District 66, Gretna, Elkhorn, Lincoln. 7 distant districts. Did I miss one? Private, that's 8.
Yeah.
So 8 different districts essentially in one class.
Correct.
So you have,
and we're not even going to get into the Mendons, the Overtons, the Amhersts, the Carneys.
Yeah, I'm just talking about just in the
Omaha
metro area.
We say NSAA.
No, you're right.
Like, so if people, again.
So you got
People wanna
Kearney.
have these conversations.
You got Kearney. You got Grand Island. You got North Platte.
Yeah, you have to educate yourself. But okay, keep going. I'm listening.
So we're at double digits minimum of Class A districts that you're having to deal with.
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Not all those districts have the same rules, policies, and procedures.
In terms of enrollment.
And yes.
Correct.
So you're talking about 11 different sets of rules that these districts abide by because they are self-governing.
Some within the same area.
Yes.
Like Millard people will tell you that there was differences between Millard South's enrollment, Millard North's enrollment, and Millard West, closed versus open.
Yeah, 100%.
Within the same district.
I don't know what it is now, but Millard West used to be closed and Millard North was open.
Or Bellevue East versus Bellevue West,
100%.
et cetera.
Okay. So you're talking about different high schools in the same district that also have different rules, right?
Putting that out there.
So a minimum of double-digit sets of rules that the NSAA is trying to deal with within one district.
Yeah, and we're clear that the NSAA is not their own operating umbrella. They work for the charter member schools.
Yes, they're much more like the commissioner of the NFL than they were like the old NCAA.
Okay.
The NCAA was a governing
Just want
body.
to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Roger Goodell works for the owners.
Yeah.
The schools are the owners. The NSAA is Roger Goodell, right?
Correct.
Roger Goodell doesn't make policy. Roger Goodell enforces the policies that the owners want to exist.
Correct.
Right? So that is another complicating factor in this. So all that being said, not an easy solution, regardless of whatever problem faces you. And I think we can acknowledge, like, yeah, there are real issues here that we would like to see solved. Now, if you're in the solutions business and you have all these complicating factors, where do you even start?
So I think, well, for me, I think we have to understand that the enrichment experience is different than athletics or because for all intents and purposes, this is just my opinion. Mm-hmm. And anybody can feel free to call in. Mm-hmm. Anyone.
888-638-4876.
You closet texters where I get these screenshots and you come across as friends, but you're really not, or educators or people in the media. Some of this is overlapping. Mm-hmm. Anybody can call in with an opinion. Like it's wide open.
Wide open first hour.
So you don't have to go to the super secret message boards. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do any of that.
Like, just give us a call.
We are available. 888-638-4876.
100%.
So the student enrichment experience, the enrichment of the student experience is different from an educational standpoint than intramurals or extracurriculars.
So when you say enrichment of the student, what does that entail?
The student experience, the academia portion,
like the actual school part
of the student experience,
the school part of school.
Yes.
Okay.
Is different
than the extracurriculars.
Right. Which is why, because you don't have to sit, if you transfer schools as a student, mm-hmm. you don't have to sit out. Right. You go to school
you
right
go
away.
To class the next day.
Right. Yeah. But for extracurriculars, mm-hmm. there may be a period. So those are clearly two different things.
Sure.
Okay. Although I don't know, like if I'm in Mendon, mm-hmm. and I want to go to Kearney and I like Kearney's band program, do I have to sit out?
I don't know.
Do I have to be on JV band?
I don't know.
These are rhetorical questions. Just food for thought.
My guess is no.
Okay, so we got to figure that part out. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, so there's multiple sides to this, whether you're open or closed. I talk about this all the time, and it goes over people's heads because they just want it to be about sports. Mm-hmm. Sports is the natural byproduct of what we see from said options. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going to have charter schools, proposed vouchers, school choice, you cannot selectively limit what happens within public schools. School choice is simply school choice. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, people will say, well, you can't have this functioning. Now, people can go out of their way to make it as difficult on public schools as they can. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that throughout time, right? Budget cuts happen. State budget cuts happens. Public schools are always going to be affected. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happens is as resources diminish and you rely more on district tax-based revenue, mm-hmm. administrators in said school district have to get creative. They just do. Mm-hmm. Like, you need revenue streams. And sometimes revenue streams come from multipliers or monies earned for getting students into your district that wouldn't normally come to your district. So they're going to take whatever said blank comes with the dollars. For some people, it could be special education services.
Sure.
For we have a very good friend, Michael Severe, who had to take his time picking. His boys needed specific services. Okay, he picked his middle school based on said educational services from the special ed department. Wonderful experience. He had the choice to do that because of the services they provided. What people will tell you is well, it should be different in athletics. Not that I believe with that, because my stance is, if you just want to say, DB, you're going to give me all sides of the discussion. My stance is, I want the student or student athlete I want the young person to have the best experience possible. I don't care where it is.
Both in enrichment and extracurriculars.
Yep. And if anybody has heard or seen or can produce anything to the contrary, let me know. But the good thing about telling the truth is you don't have to remember what you said. So I say all that to say, I don't care where you go to school. I don't really care what you do. Kids have moved for special education services. People have moved for safety concerns. People have moved for athletic reasons. Because what happens is we get folks that want to establish policy that don't really have any skin in the game. I'm not sure how viable or how healthy it is to have somebody that can't relate to the struggles be the end-all be-all for the solution. And by struggles, I'm not necessarily even talking about socioeconomics. I'm talking about issues that you aren't familiar with that happen in your building.
Just the challenges of
right. Like
educating.
I wouldn't be the first foremost person you would call on cooking Indonesian food. I love to eat, and I like all types of food. Not so good with Indonesian food.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna sit this out, and I'm gonna see what everybody else says. But what's happening now is, and where has this been? Like, where were all these rallying cries for like my guys like Jerry Lovell, who were at Bellevue East, and Bellevue East is getting their head kicked in, and we there was this undertone. Coach Woods, he had some good fellas over there. I mean, that love to coach kids, right? And when Bellevue split, it was like people made choices. I like what this school has to offer, so I'm going there. And at first, it wasn't even about athletics. It morphed into that because of the numbers disparity. Then Bellevue would get into the close. See, nobody wants to have these conversations, but we're going to have them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there was this thing, right, where it was like, okay, there's this disparity, but man, we got to play this game every year because it generates revenues. Oh, it's going to be our most well-attended game. It's a Bellevue thing. So that was cool. We could put the money in the pot and
everybody splits it up.
Yeah. Now somebody's athletic experience isn't going to be enriched, but you sure will make money.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen with Papio and the Titans. We even saw it for all the, he's a fantastic coach. For all the pushback Coach Peterson gets about his personality, this guy was fighting for Millard West and what was going on there within his own district. That's why I'm not like, he's always going to be okay with me because it's the kid experience.
Yeah.
I say all this to say, even within the districts, getting on the same page is a real thing. And we'll get to the Metro here coming out of the break. If you want to go here, we'll go all the way here.
Let's go all the way here. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. You can also catch us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, where we've got a lot of comments already about this school discussion that we're having. I'm going to start positive. Erica says, shout out to Kearney High School Bearcat Band.
Yeah.
We love the band.
Love the band.
SkyMax says his former band dad who had a daughter that transferred her junior year of high school. That's a great item to bring up. There's a lot, and then Lance chimes in.
Which one? Lincoln?
Yeah.
I know his stance, but go ahead.
He goes, he doesn't think the example you gave of Sevier is the same because he's in the same district. He doesn't think that transferring within the district.
You see, he missed the point. You see, his scope is too narrow.
Mhm.
Sevier is fortunate enough that the school provided those services.
Mhm.
What if they didn't?
There you go.
I didn't even get a chance to get to that.
Well, let's get to that.
He
then.
doesn't want to have Lance. I'm telling you, you're my boy. You do not want to have this conversation with me. And I'm not saying I'm right, but what I am telling you is I don't have to remember what I said or change what I said because I'm for the student experience. So whatever is best for the student, I'm probably going to lobby for.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the other thing, since Lance, let me cook here for a second.
Yeah, let's go.
He was fortunate that middle school provided those services. See, other schools that have quote unquote open enrollment may not. So what's been the big shift at Westside? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because Westside has a very small attendance population. So they get dollars per student head for open enrollment. Very similar to Millard North,
mm-hmm.
right? There's a reason that Behringer and Dostal and Kirkman, those guys get along because they understand trying to maintain a healthy budget for said school district.
Mm-hmm.
So what did Westside have to do? Well, Westside had to create a new vision for the district because there were going to be students in the district that I'm not going to say ill-equipped, but they needed to revamp for. For example, and this was not on Dostal's watch. This was back when I was at OPS.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Westside when I was transitioning kids out of the Douglas County Youth Center for the Title I department in Omaha Public Schools to talk to them about testing and providing services in the area of special ed because they were inexperienced. Their caseloads were very small.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've had to do is, as the student population changes, mental health, services provided, what more people can qualify for, 504s versus IEPs, these things that people don't really want to deal with,
mm-hmm. but
if you really love education, you do deal with. So what happens in closed enrollments versus open enrollments? Well, in closed enrollments, you can control your numbers. You can say, hey, we only have 18 kids on our special ed caseload, and our services are for this. Because in those buildings, they don't have to staff it because they can control their accommodations. So that's the downside of taking on the money that comes with open enrollment. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons that people stay closed is because they want to control their population.
Mm-hmm.
That's no secret.
And really control their budget as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's this. Do you know how long I had to wait 3 years to move? 3 before I could get anywhere. So where I felt like it was advantageous to be closer to Westside.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But we knew he had to opt in as an 8th grader.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard. That was really, really hard. I said out loud, real time, I almost didn't talk to my own kid. And there was probably a couple hours where I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I said, are you sure? 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 Keep in mind, he didn't want to come. You know why he didn't want to come to where I was?
Where? Why?
He didn't like all the experiences.
Yeah.
I want to do something different. I don't want to follow my dad. Okay. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So what did he want to do? He wanted, academically, this is what he wanted to do. So I was like, shoot, logistically, split household. I'm just getting settled in my personal life with a new endeavor there, getting remarried.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to think about all these things logistically. And at the end of the day, he chose not to go to school, because this is another thing too. It's a separate sidebar. I'm like, okay, if you do this, we're not leaving. Mm-hmm. It will have to be something catastrophic that gets you out of this building. So mm-hmm. you better be sure. So he spent 2 days there. He spent 2 days there not going to school, like following kids
shadowing.
around. Yeah. went to the business finance class, like the modular scheduling, whatever. Because sometimes what parents do, and this is what they're not telling you.
Mm-hmm.
See, parents want to, if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford to live in an area that provide all the services that you feel like your child needs to enhance their academic experience, then they stay right there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you care, or what do you tell people that may not want that? Because here's the thing that people don't want to talk about. Not all people that are classed the same want to be around the same people all the time.
Yeah.
Right? There's a young man that's over at prep whose mom did not want him in public schools because she didn't want him in that quote unquote environment. What am I supposed to say to her? Don't go to prep?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how come you don't want him at said school? Well, there's too many people that look like him. I don't want him around that. Should that not be a thing?
No, I mean, I get it.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
You want to go to the educators?
Mm-hmm.
How about the educators in said building, right? If open or closed. Sometimes the reason why they don't get fulfillment and enrichment from their job is because it's not diversified enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing day after day after day. And they can't just go get another job, but they do look.
They do.
They do often look.
I know that for sure.
Like, are we going to act like flight isn't really a thing?
Yeah.
But no.
For students and teachers.
How about people just wanting jobs?
Yeah.
How about, like, do you work close to your home? Ideally, you'd like to.
Love to.
But if it's not feasible,
right,
then you probably work far from home.
Or what if there's a better opportunity at a place far from where you live?
So that it's just morphed into athletics.
Because it's the thing that has a scoreboard.
Listen, the Overtons, the Bradys, the Gothenburgs, the Mendons, the Amhersts, the Carneys. I watched two families at Howes Dodge not send their kids to that school because of the co-op, because of why? Money. Did not want that money, that farming money being spent in that community. So what they do, they drove their kids to the goddamn water tower so they could go to school at West Point. Like, let's not act like this hasn't been going on for years. Again, nobody's sending Coach Lovell or Coach Drennan. When George Drennan was getting beat at Northwest, nobody was like, hey, man, let's make sure that those brand new neighborhoods of Somerset, those kids ought to make them go to Northwest. It's only when little Timmy and Tina weren't getting their enrichment experiences or not having as much success at somebody else's expense that it turned into this thing. Like, if you're for the student, then be for the student. It may be at your own expense. I watched a school come to almost every single one of our youth games for almost 3 years. I went to the coach next door and I said, hey, I'm just telling you, these kids are right. And if I'm lying, I'm dying. If he had the stones or he wasn't busy teaching, he'd call and say, you know what, I don't like you, DB, but you did tell me this. I said, hey, they're not coming to play for me or us at Westside. Keep them. These are your guys. And I watched the school come for 3 years and stand on the side, and all coaches were coming from everywhere. It's a good team. And I'm sure as I'm sitting here, like 7 of those kids are at that school. Like it worked. Why? Well, because parents want what's best for their kids and they stay in the moment. And sometimes they don't make good decisions. So it doesn't work out the way that they want it to. So then they want to do something different. It's not the school's fault and it's not the kids' fault. But the same people that have all these solutions don't want to hold themselves accountable for the same things that they believe in. How many youth organizations did these people change in to provide a better experience for their kid?
So they did all the way growing up, and now we're surprised it happens in high school.
Like, it's not the city, quote unquote, that has all the revenues for the new jerseys and the facilities. There's a co-op because we like to use the byproduct under this umbrella, and then you say, hey, come play for us.
You said,
like, we gotta stop it.
You said something there that I want to get back to. If you really want to help people, if you really want to be for the student, it may come at your own expense.
It might.
Lance, hang on here. We'll get to you when we come back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio after the break.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. You can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. We're getting into this discussion about open enrollment, NSAA, all that fun stuff that has been kind of percolating in the city for the last, well, and I guess the state too, for the last week or so. And DB, you said something that kind of caught my attention at the end of that last segment, where you go, hey, if you're really for what's best for the kids and what's best for the student enrichment experience, you have to accept that it may come at your expense.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where the solutions part becomes troubling for some people, because most people, whether it's school, whether it's business, whether it's family and relationships, most people I've found aren't real excited about finding solutions that come at their own expense. And is that, I mean, we've laid out, we've done a really good job of laying out why this is a complicated issue, right?
It's extremely complicated.
But is that the core reason we can't find a good solution?
No.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Well, let's take this call first.
We got Lance on the line here talking about open enrollment. Lance, what's going on?
Hey, this thing on?
Yeah, you're on, babe.
Hey, bud. Question for you. So I was reading through the District 66 open enrollment FAQ, and I appreciate you dropping some knowledge on the process. I had a daughter. My oldest daughter goes to Gretna East, played sports there. But when she lived in Lincoln, she had an IEP. So it's interesting to hear that information of schools getting more money if they have kids that have issues and things like that, because I think some of the times maybe they want to keep people on those programs as long as humanly possible. But
there are some districts that want to keep those kids out, so therefore they don't have to spend that money in that capacity. So it's a two-way street. But keep going.
Okay. And so then I have some friends. I have friends that are some teachers throughout the different communities, some smaller town schools, some larger.
Okay.
But so the issue that I have is specifically with, like a unit that you're in District 66. Some of my ex's extended family live in that district, and you watch people go over there and buy very expensive homes only to tear them down to build even more expensive houses. And we see this large population shift, and you're in a school that's very privileged, right?
Are we?
Then you go in.
Do you know what our free do you know what our free and reduced numbers are?
About 33%.
Yeah. Does that sound
same thing with yep.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure you know that a third of the school is on free and reduced lunch.
Yep. You have a student-teacher ratio of like 16-1, right? And a minority enrollment of about 31%. So when I look at
let's not act like all white people have access to money too, because I don't want you to come across as being disingenuous.
No, I'm not. You know me. I'm not like.
I'm making sure for clarities. I'm helping you out. I'm not challenging.
Yeah,
I'm helping you out. Okay.
No, I get that. And so when you look at their FAQ, and I'm just using this as the example, right? And we have a lot of this going on now with the whole thing that's on the ballot and the money that's there. And you see what administrators are out there on X openly against this, while they're also sort of taking advantage of some of that extra money that's out there.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true, Lance. But why do we have districts that continually vote down bonds so their schools don't have to expand? Like, if it's good for the goose and it's not good for the gander, and you only want it to be advantageous for you so you can control enrollments, you shouldn't be speaking on what's happening in the rest of the city or the state. Like, people intentionally vote down bonds so their schools don't have to expand. Why? Because they like competitive advantages. You think if Papillion had it to do all over again and they weren't busting at the seams and they saw the unintended consequences from opening up a new high school, they wouldn't have delayed that? Like,
they absolutely would have.
So go to Burke and say, hey, Omaha Burke, what happened? You used to be the crown jewel. Oh, no, Burke will say, oh, no, that was Central. You know what happened? Other schools opened, and there was this split, the same thing that happened from Elkhorn to Elkhorn South. I got a good buddy who moved from Blair because he was capable, so his son could go play baseball at Elkhorn South before they had re-established the district lines for being south of 180th and Dodge. What do you tell the people, Lance, that aren't able to do that? That they just can't better themselves? But the problem is, Lance, the problem is we've made it about sports. It's not about sports. Sports is just what we can see. It's about the opportunities. So some solutions, if you want competitive sports balance, is the NSAA has to have the proposals, right? It has to come from the charter member schools. So if Southern Valley and Benson and schools that don't have the numbers, Lincoln High, Coach Mackey, like Lincoln High is what's their school population? 2,200, right? So, but they don't have football numbers. Huge school, don't have football numbers. So maybe you go tier scheduling. Maybe you reclass. Maybe you don't do football or your major sports by school enrollment and enrollment population. Like sometimes you have to have an open-minded line of thinking for the sake of balance. Now, why is that not easy? Well, I don't know if logistically travel would be feasible to have enough games. Then you may say, hey, well, maybe they can only play 6 games. Too bad. Well, then you're going to continue to not have kids want to go to that school for certain reasons. So I'm not sure that nips it in the bud either.
I think it's natural though as a school ages.
Yeah.
As a school ages to not be as good in athletics. I went to Southeast when we were dominant in about everything, right?
They would be a good school
happened?
to talk. They would be a good school to talk to, because you know what? If I'm Alex Gordon and I really have a ton of pride in my school, and let's say I have some extra couch change and I'd like to say, hey, I'd like to do some renovations and pump this into Lincoln Southeast. The district is going to say, hey, even Steven, this is public schools. If we do it for one, we have to do it for all. And AG may say, this is hypothetical, of course. AG may say, wait a minute, I'm a Southeast guy. This isn't about East or Pius or whomever, not Pius because they would be private, but
Southwest.
So you have to change. You have to change the policy. Don't just fast forward to crying about the sports. Because I'm just telling you, when I was getting my teeth kicked in at Northwest, I didn't have a ton of advocates. Nobody was. I didn't hear live here, play here. You know what I mean? Because when I didn't. I didn't. So just people being disingenuous, whether it's the actual school district. Do you know what sometimes separates school districts that are only separated by blocks? Enrollment dollars. Enrollment dollars. Enrollment dollars. You want to know the difference between Westside and Ralston? Enrollment dollars. Like that. Those are the dirty little secrets that people don't want to talk about, right? The whole go to school in your neighborhood. What if my neighborhood doesn't afford me the opportunity that I want for my young person? Are you going to tell me too bad? Should I go make more money because my levy's like okay? What do you think?
I think so. I have a buddy that has an extremely talented daughter in basketball.
Well, you have an extremely talented daughter in basketball.
Yeah, I do.
I have a buddy who has an extremely talented daughter in basketball. How would you handle it, Lance?
So I'm going to use my buddy as an example.
Why not use you? You're in it.
My daughter is not at the level of this girl, and this girl's a sixth grader being recruited by 3 different high schools.
Okay.
Now, when I go and look at, and I'm telling you, she lives as far away as the one that's probably recruiting her the hardest as you will find. I mean, I'm just telling you. And what I find really odd is when you start doing that, and then you go and look at the option enrollment FAQs, and you see things that are out there of like, hey, we don't look at when you apply as
it's supposed to be blind, right? It's a blind resume.
Yep. So my concern is like, I love that kid. You know, she calls me uncle, whatever. But like, I would feel bad if she went into a school that I think like someone that really needed what that school could offer her. I would feel bad for her taking a spot if that spot was like, hey, we know this girl could help us on the basketball court. We're gonna just go ahead and take this one right here.
Lance, that bothers me. Lance, that does happen. That does happen.
I know.
That does happen. I appreciate the call, Lance. We're trying to get to the solutions here real quick if we have any.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point that Lance brought up, because that's where the athletics and the enrichment experience clash with each other, right?
You do know that some teachers that are part of the open enrollment process don't like open enrollment because that means they got to diversify their portfolio too, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're 15, 20, 25 years in, you're like, oh, shoot, we got to start over.
Yeah, what do I got to do now?
This isn't for me. Well, I'm coaching or I'm teaching kids that didn't used to look like me. That happens.
Yeah.
Conversely, you also have teachers that are like, man, I get you give me the same kids reassigned to this school over and over and over again.
And I never get to do anything else.
Why do we always get the short end of the stick?
Why don't I ever get to do anything else with my classroom?
It's very hard to legislate athletics without legislating opportunities and restricting freedom within the school boundaries.
It's not just very hard. I would venture to say almost impossible, and probably a mistake to try and legislate athletics without taking the greater school picture into account.
We'll talk NSAA later this week. We'll get Newhouse or somebody on.
Brian Christopherson coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, you got guys and walking into Ace Hardware without their shirts on.
Brian Christopherson.
We got a pretty good sewing circle in this state.
Brian Christopherson.
To me, it's like crunch time, baby.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Anything that you do well, you want it to carry over. I was happy for the guys that run around, going into the bye week, they recharge and all that stuff, but this is a new week, completely different challenge for the guys, you know what I mean? So going on the road, I think I saw it was a sellout or something like that. Great offense. So completely different challenge this week in terms of what we got to face. Really, really high level quarterback. So, we're just getting them ready. I mean, Tuesday out there, it was pretty energetic, pretty lively. So we gotta make sure we execute.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys. We got to send a shout out to 9-year-old Flora who listens to this segment. She's on her way to piano lessons.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Yeah, I request that she asks her teacher to go through every fight song on Nebraska's schedule and learn how to play it. That's my assignment for her.
So, does your teacher does she have a pretty expansive base? Because I know she can teach a 9-year-old, but do you think she could teach me? Because I've talked about this for like 15 years. One thing that I really want to do, BC, is I want to learn to play I always would say the keyboard, but the piano's the same. It'd be the same thing.
Yeah.
Think he or she has the temperament?
Yeah, sounds like it. I mean,
now you know me. Is there much of a difference in personality between Flora and I? Pretty similar.
I would say you could have some conversations that are on the level, probably. Yeah, I think you're probably about there. Sounds like you got some work to do with your math skills. So get the flashcards out. But no, I appreciate the shout out. It was a little shout out on Twitter, now known as X, from Flora's dad. So I hope they're having a good trip listening to me babble.
BC, so we were speaking about people heading to school and things like that. We're having a lot of NSAA talk this morning. So I'm curious. You're an Omaha North guy, right?
I am, and I'll warn you beforehand. I know this subject is hot right now, and I don't have a good take to say. But
you know what? Knowing what you don't know is what makes you smart, B. I wish other people were like that.
I appreciate that. I promise not to ask you any tough questions. I was just curious because we were kind of talking about why people go to different schools. Were you I know back when I went to school, it was thought about less, at least in my circle. And maybe that's just because I grew up in a neighborhood with a good school, but were you in neighborhood for Omaha North, or did you choose to go there for a specific reason?
No, I went to Omaha North as part of the magnet program.
See?
So I went to McMillan Junior High, and then got to, all my friends at that point in junior high were going to North. And so I had an option between 5 schools back then. I think my neighborhood school would have been Burke, or Northwest was a school I could have went to. But I just had all my friends going to North, and at the time, North was just humming with student population. I mean, our freshman class was ridiculous. It dwindled by senior year. I was a class of '99. That's how old I am now. But
and it was very attractive to North at the time with the magnet programs to draw in people that looked like you, BC. Right. So that's the kind. Those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about when people say, "Well, why don't you just go?" Some people invite diversity, and it matters within the building too, even when it goes contrary to popular belief the other way. We want the smart white guys too, right? But people don't want to say that, BC. I'm just being honest. And don't worry, we all know you're smart.
A dumb white guy like me too. But I'll say this, from my Omaha North experience in McMillan before that, I always just speak so glowingly about it because it was such a diverse school.
Yeah.
And it was a great community too, like the chemistry that we had within the walls when I was there. It was really incredible, and I made friends from different backgrounds all over the city that you wouldn't expect. So that was my experience in high school. Things were different at the time and how everything was handled. And so I know there's a lot of different levers being pulled on now, and things have changed. But I am a proud North Viking, that's for sure.
It was very important for North to be able to draw folks like you in. That was a beautiful message, B, and it was very innocent and authentic in nature. There was I'm telling you, this is one of those things I'm passionate about. I am dead serious. See, the schools want people like you. They do. we're just afraid to say why. I'm not, because it's happened to me at my own expense, and I've also been at schools that reap the benefits. So honesty is the best thing, and you did it for opportunity, right or wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you had opportunity, right? Okay.
Well,
I just want to make sure.
It was a math and computer magnet school, and what I got, my opportunity actually came through journalism. It's interesting. I didn't know this when I ended up going to Omaha North. Michael Kranak was the teacher, was a brilliant teacher, and I ended up they won state titles while I was there in journalism and stuff like that. It really got me into it. So it's interesting just how things work out, and it ended up being a blessing for me.
Shout out to high school journalism. I was right there with you there, BC.
And look how he turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as shining.
Work out. That's true.
I'm not as shining of an example as you are. But Bruns came from that same program I did with that, the hoofbeat back in Miller North. So,
yep, he
did pretty good too.
In the same vein, I got to be cool with DJ Coleman, who leaves Macmillan to go to Miller North.
Yeah,
right. It's just like that.
BC, let's hop into Nebraska, Indiana here this week. Obviously, a lot of talk about Indiana start to the season. I'm going to ask you the same question we asked about Rutgers.
Okay.
Do you think Indiana is better than we think they are, not as good as they think they are, or as we think they are, or exactly as good as we think they are, as kind of a fan base culture in Nebraska area?
Okay, if I were to take what the average, what I've heard from everybody, put it together with the averages, I would say as good as people think they are. I think there's a good respect level for them, but there's also a thought that this game can be had. People know Nebraska is going to have to play really well. Perhaps you've gotten a different vibe from callers early this week than I've gotten, but I think there's a nodding respect to Kurt Signidian and an understanding that he played the transfer game really well with his James Madison guys, and then getting Rourke in there at QB and how it's all come together. And I know that the first thing is, but the schedule, however, I think they've handled their business quite efficiently is what I'd say. And whenever you score more than 41 points in 3 Big Ten games, I don't really care. I care a little bit, but who the Big Ten teams are that you play, that gets you to notice. So I think there's a healthy respect, and obviously the people are throwing in their money at this game kind of think that too. The spread's moved up a little, and I think it was at 6.5 last story I was writing.
So here's the thing, BC. So Nebraska, if we were going to describe Nebraska's kind of their prowess over I use that term loosely, just what their results over the last 10, 15 years, is inefficient a word that you would use? That's just kind of a yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that works fine.
So is one of the things that you think we're so worried about with Indiana is maybe not top flight talent, but because they are so efficient? Like this looks like a team that we've kind of worked ourselves up over because they just don't make a ton of mistakes.
Yeah, that's part of it. And to further your point, sometimes opponents of Nebraska do get made into be, like the Patriots when they're trying to go undefeated type of stuff. This is obviously not that. I just think they, you got to respect a team when they're winning by double digits against other Big Ten foes, and you look at their red zone numbers and again the competition. But that's what jumps out to me is they've been in the red zone 37 times, which is the most in the FBS. And I know they have that outlier game against Western Illinois where they scored 77. That kind of skews the numbers. But they've scored 30 times of the 37 trips touchdowns in the red zone. Nebraska's defense, you heard Ty Robinson talk about it the other day, their mentality down there, they're not getting in, haven't allowed a rushing touchdown down there, and have only allowed touchdowns in 6 of 13 trips from opponents there. So I think that's an interesting game within the game. When you talk about efficiency from the other side, can Nebraska sort of cut that off a little bit And, there's going to be a series, I assume, early in this game or within the first quarter, early second quarter, where Indiana's down there, around the 15, 20-yard line. Can Nebraska, in a moment or two or three like that, turn away Indiana, sort of force them to take their medicine and take 3 points? And maybe it's one of those sequences where in the moment your Husker fans are a little like, they got some points. But I think that could be the difference between winning and losing, those sort of scenarios in this game, not breaking in those moments.
BC, what are you expecting to see from Indiana's offense, just in the sense of this is by far the best defense they'll face this year, but up to this point, they've really been able to do whatever they want against their competition in terms of putting points on the board. Like, how are you weighing those two factors to get an idea of what you'll see on Saturday?
Well, I'm just heavily intrigued by it because I'm not selling Nebraska's defense low at all. I think, this is the type of game they've been building for. I think they can be disruptive and make Curtis Rourke more uncomfortable than he's been.
Yeah.
And it's just about, I always think that D-line, I think it was Rule who said he saw the TV tape of James Williams after his one sack where he gets up and he's pointing at Jamari Butler because Butler made a move that opened up the lane for James Williams to make his move. And I feel like if this D-line and sort of that front is playing together with that type of chemistry and the type of tenacity that they're capable of, they're going to definitely have their moments too where they make things very uncomfortable for Indiana. So this is one of those good-on-good matchups, at least how it looks on paper. And sometimes the fun part is you go into a game like that thinking it's good-on-good, and then you find it's good on average, or and so what we'll see like who gets the upper hand there and who actually flexes. But there's no reason Nebraska's defense shouldn't go into it confident and excited about the opportunity too. To all right, let's see what you got. We feel pretty good about what we got.
So BC, let me ask you something about like just kind of listening to Coach White, and he's talking about the guys flying around, and it was pretty spirited. And a lot of people have tried to break this down into blank versus blank in terms of the key matchups. For you, would you start with Nebraska's special teams, their offense, or their defense if they want to come out with a win? How do you rank those in order for me?
Oh boy. Man, I dare say I'd put offense 1, and that's maybe going against the grain a little. Special teams 2 and defense 3, because I just think defense is going to show up and at least do their part.
And that's interesting too, because we're probably the most worried about Indiana's offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of they have some gaudy numbers and all that, but Nebraska's defense does too. So again, a good on good. We'll see where that maybe it shakes out pretty evenly, maybe not. But I think Nebraska's offense, there's a little worry there too, just because of the second half and how it kind of finished. It was really interesting hearing young Dylan talk the other day.
Young Dylan
about he's mature though, and he was talking about that game, the second half against Rutgers, and it was like he had that quote where it's like, it felt like the end of the season. Like you can tell like he had such a standard, and it was difficult for him to have to sit with that one for a few days and then extra week actually. And so I think he's chomping at the bit to get back out there and play and put a better foot forward with this offense. And a big part of that though, 1 and 2, you could almost say 1 and 2 have to be married together, like the offense and special teams. Like Nebraska's special teams obviously has to avoid the catastrophes that Rule talks about, but just as much it's going to come down to can you be the unit? And Buccini did really well when they weren't having punts blocked at pinning the other side deep and making Indiana drive it. And on the other hand, Nebraska's offense in that Rutgers game, if you think about why it was part of the reason it was so stale, they started drives at the 2, 3, and 5 yard line on like 3 of the 5 possessions that they had. So that's going to be a big part of it, is hopefully they get a little field to work with. And then you talk about efficiency, that's where they have to excel on third down, keep Indiana off the field, and just have some drives that you take up a little time and you get in a rhythm and kind of get Indiana off theirs. Help your defense out too.
BC, as much as I hate to admit it, DB brought up a good point here about most people being worried about the defense of Nebraska versus the offense of Indiana. But the most recent thing we saw was Nebraska's offense struggling against Rutgers. And we haven't brought up a ton that Indiana's defense quite highly rated as well this year. What level of concern, if any, do you have about Nebraska's offensive performance on Saturday?
Yeah, that's why I put them 1 on my list, because that's the group. I'm not saying I don't think they can get it done. I'm just a little more prove it. Like let's see that consistency for 3 to 4 quarters. How about that? Because I think the offense has sort of had these disjointed games where you felt good about a quarter here, a quarter there, or a half here. But can this be the game where it feels pretty solid for 4 quarters? And there's just sort of that consistent drumbeat there. And so, the short to intermediate passing game hopefully is in rhythm. I think that's going to be a big part of it. Hopefully you're getting yourself into like 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, and you really test Indiana out to see if they can actually get off the field in those settings, because I think Nebraska's got the weapons with Banks and Nair, and I think Fedoni is kind of quietly been coming on here and there in that offense where they can get some things done. So I'm excited for that matchup. I think Nebraska can move the football, but I put them 1 on that question Damon asked, because they're the group I actually have probably wondered more about this week than any other. And obviously special teams, that's the mystery sucker. That's the sucker that's like in the purple wrapping, with a question mark. We gotta open that up, and it's gotta be something good this week.
Oh, I was kind of more of a butterscotch barrel guy myself, but anyway.
Well, hopefully it is. See, that's it. The one where you don't know what it's gonna be, or hopefully it's butterscotch. Yeah.
Who's choosing butterscotch candy?
That was kind of my jam for those. You talking about the Dum-Dums, right? Those were
any butterscotch.
Like
get out of here.
Village Inn Dum-Dums is what I think of. Yeah.
That's my buddy Chad. I had a good buddy, Chad Morford. We would walk to Goodrich, and I would get butterscotch malts. That was like my jam when I was a kid.
Ugh.
We got to remember, man. Like BC didn't every. I was gonna say every black kid. You're like, well, how would I know? Didn't everybody? You're a butterscotch guy, BC. Like, didn't everybody have like the Brock's butterscotch discs and the little strawberry candies? Like, that was the jam, wasn't it? BC.
Yeah, what was that? You're like BC. You went to Omaha North. Tell me about the butterscotch.
Comes first full circle. That's all that. That's all that diversity you hung out with. You learned to love butterscotch, right?
I did.
You're the goat, B.
Is that where the Werther's thing came from?
You get some Jim's Rib Haven, and you get a little butterscotch to finish it off. I think butterscotch. It might be is it generational at all? Because like I feel like grandparents of my generation, and maybe some parents like had more butterscotch like out on the coffee table or something like that, like treats. So maybe that's it.
Yeah,
I'm trying to move the conversation a different direction.
I think it might be a generational issue, BC. I think you're right.
So B, when we're talking about Nebraska offensively, you think shot plays and the willingness to take some shot plays come before an established run game, or do you think the established run game comes before the shot plays when you look at how much zone or how Indiana likes to play defense, at least statistically?
I definitely think some shots could come early, and I was just thinking about a guy like Jalen Lloyd during the break, this bye break, and how last year we were a little bit spoiled because he had like the 6 catches, but like 3 of them were just unbelievable explosions of like 58 yards. And it feels like something like that, too. He's been close on a couple that he's had, on the fake punt and all that stuff. So I just could see like a wild card like him popping up for a big play early in this game. Ja'Cory obviously is capable of it. And, this is also that stretch where Nair and Banks came in here. They've done some good things. You've seen that they can win 50-50 balls and stuff like that. But this might be that portion of the season where they've gotten some more comfort with their quarterback, and let's see if this thing can take off to another level a little bit. And so I think Nair is a tough matchup, for them on, and I could see him getting loose for a deep one, and maybe that does open up the run game. So it wouldn't bother me if Nebraska tests out, Indiana with the long ball once or twice early, and at least to keep them honest, and then kind of work off of it.
Wait, BC, so you're telling me that you don't have to establish the run game in order to make everything else work. Sometimes it can work backwards.
Well, it can. I understand you got to play the cat and mouse and see what they're giving you, and maybe it goes the other way. But definitely that can sometimes be the case. And so if we see a long throw early and it's incomplete, you kind of can nod your head to it and say that there can be a purpose to it still. So obviously it's better if you hit, but I understand if you want to spread them out a little bit, make them think about it, let them know you're going to do that. It wouldn't shake me up at all if I saw that. And I think Nebraska's got some guys who have more plays in their bag with that sort of thing, and some of the explosives in the pass game than we've actually seen so far this season. So we'll see if some of that can come out Saturday.
You see, it's interesting too. This may be a good case. I was going to say test case or case study, so I said test case of the whole Nebraska factor after you play a team, because Indiana, health-wise, has managed to stay relatively healthy. I know they'll probably get their linebacker back this week because of the bye week, but they play a lot of the same guys. Their player participation sheets they play their guys well into the fourth quarter. I'd be curious to see what happens the week after a team like Indiana plays Nebraska. Unfortunately, Nebraska has to get them first. You know what I mean? But this would be one of those times where context matters when you apply something to a trend. Yeah,
it does. But also within this game, you can test that out a little bit and they say, okay, let's see if that lack of depth or I guess just rotation development that you've got going so far this season, if that works against you on this Saturday, where you get to the third or fourth quarter and maybe you are starting to pop some runs and you get into that 75 plus rushing yards late in the game. So all sorts of interesting things. I'm also interested, guys, how a program like Indiana, which I'm very respectful of their team, but they're not used to like a big noon setup on their campus and all this stuff with football. Sometimes that works against the program that's new to it, and they don't respond as well when they've got that environment sort of in the air. So I think there's a lot of things that are a good setup for Nebraska psychologically in this game. You just got to go in there and handle your business, do what you can do, and I think they can win it.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7, who started all these problems by open enrolling back in 1995. Thanks a lot, BC.
My fault. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, B.
Thanks for having me.
Kevin Sjuts coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Stay aggressive. Never a time like we're going to go until coach tells us to stop. And I think, the previous game, I think we just one of those, we just never could get going. It wasn't us trying to take our foot off the pedal. It was just literally, we just couldn't get going, couldn't get in a rhythm on offense. So I think you have to, you have to keep attacking. Once you relax, you lose your edge. And once you lose your edge, bad things can happen.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're back here with Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. What's up, Kevin?
Good morning, and I hope that you guys feel the same way I do. The bye week was nice, but it's even better to be back in game week. I'm like the players, rested and recharged for the remaining 6 games.
Are you like one of the freshmen or like one of the veterans? The freshmen that are like, oh, man, I hate bye weeks. You're like one of the veterans that are like, yeah, we need a break.
No, I'm a veteran, and I loved watching all the football this past Saturday.
Yeah, that was a joy.
For the weeks that Nebraska had its bye aligned with the college slate, I mean, every time slot had good games. They all delivered. I even stayed up and watched that Hawaii-Boise State game. Boise's good, by the way, Ashton Janty is something to watch. Like
I love his stance. Like, he stands back there before he gets the ball like
a serial killer.
He's getting ready to go shopping or something. Like, you'd never guess that he's just literally standing there. Like,
I can't decide if that's like uber confidence or just like the way he plays. I don't know, but it works.
Yeah, he's way good. Okay, so Kev, would you rather be a guy that has to, in 2024 going forward, would you rather be the coach that has to understand analytics or the guy that has to understand clock management?
Oh, well, you have a staff of about 90 people, so why do you have to understand either?
You think, but if you watch college football again this weekend, it's like, I mean, apparently it's hard, and I'm not making light of it, but man, sometimes you just shake your head?
Without question. And, all the intricacies. Don't you have a guy on staff that, like, his sole responsibility is to read the rule book and think of every possible way you can kind of dupe the system?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what Oregon did. It's so brilliant what they did. Like, yeah, we'll put 12 guys on the field. We don't care we're getting a flag.
And then
just don't let the big play happen.
Then Cauley, the former official, was like, yeah, they screwed up when they made that a dead ball foul. They need to make that a live penalty again. So guess what? Guess what's going in the rule book for next year?
How about next week? Yeah. I feel like that thing could change. Serious. If there's a game that comes down to the wire and somebody's driving and behind, doesn't the defensive team throw 12 guys on the field? If the rule doesn't change this week, why would you not do it?
I'm throwing like 15 guys on the field. Like, I'm not taking any. I'm not taking any chances.
So
Kevin.
You can get a pick and waste time by running it back.
That's what I mean. Like,
You're right though, Kevin. The sense of urgency might be upped.
What's the advantage of not throwing 20 guys on the field? It's supposed to be the same penalty, right?
Especially if it's they're going to continue to run the clock.
Yeah,
it's so like that is chess versus checkers that Dan Lanning was doing, and I think that thing could change seriously. I don't know if they can put it into legislation so quickly and push it forward that it's this week, but it's got to happen soon because I truly believe somebody may do it this week.
I mean, I would. I was sort of being facetious, but why stop at 12? If it's the same penalty, and DB's right, like go pick a ball off, waste 8 more seconds.
Yeah.
Like what's the downside to doing that? If everybody knows what the penalty is now, as a ref, you can't just go out there and say, "Hey, reset the game clock."
That's got to be something we watch now, though, Kevin, because you bring up I didn't even clearly because I said next year, but you might be right because it's a copycat league, right?
It is. And, let's say Nebraska's in that spot. Like, we talk about Tommy Hill or Sierra Wright. How about both of them in the final seconds of the game?
Yeah. Just double up. Let's go.
And Hartzog and Singleton and Isaac Gifford. And, you could see, every single black shirt and then, the Tootie all on the field at the same time.
You're like, whoops.
Is it within the rules? No. But what is the, what's the penalty? The penalty is worth literally every second of that situation, and then the yardage you give up. So what? But you didn't give up 6, and that's the main thing.
Yeah. I mean, really, what's the difference between that and tackling a guy that's running by you on a pass interference because you're like 15 yards, that's worth it. I'm not giving up 6. It's the exact same idea.
Oh, Ravi, you brought that up. I've said that for years, and so many people believe the same thing. Like
I still hate the yardage in the NFL, though. Do you like?
Well, see, it's different in the NFL.
Do you like that spot foul in the NFL?
Nah, yes, but no. The one thing that sucks is, if you take a shot at the end zone and it's a 45-yard pass and the guy gets, smoked in the end zone, ball's at the 1. So you're like, well, I get it, but I don't. That's the one part that I don't like is when it's automatically you get the ball at the 1-yard line when you didn't do anything outside of draw a foul.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I understand it.
I asked earlier if you would describe kind of Nebraska's tenure over the last 10, 15 years as inefficient. Is it Indiana's efficiency that has us the most concerned? Because I don't think it's individual players, even though Indiana has some good ones. They come across as highly efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it, DB. I had a good friend, a former coworker of mine, TJ Eck, and he worked at 10-11 for, 3-4 years with me. He took a job in Harrisonburg, and he covered JMU for 4 or 5 years. He was the JMU guy, and he was traveling with the team, and so he got to know Kurt Cignetti really well, and he's told me nothing but great things about him as a coach and his acumen for the game, but also just how well-versed he is on everything involved with football. And he was a really good dude, and he treated TJ very well. So he's fascinated by this matchup, and through him, I've been able to learn a little bit more about Indiana and, the JMU infusion on this Indiana team. And he told me, don't overlook how good Indiana's defense is. He's seeing a lot of JMU fingerprints defensively with this team. Everybody is just so attracted to the 47 points per game and the 515 yards of offense per game. But he's like, Kamara, the guy that I think he has 4 or 5 sacks right now, and some people say he could be the Big Ten's defensive player of the year at the moment. He's like, just watch out for him. They move him all over the place, and the defense is better than what people probably realize.
Kevin, how do you balance the idea of, hey, we know that individual players can be really good, whether at these smaller levels, whether it's FCS or Group of 5 or whatever, versus balancing out the fact that in general, the Big Ten on a team-to-team basis is going to be more talented? Like, how do you think at some point that catches up with Indiana that, like, hey, these players are just not from this level and they've done really well to win the games they have up to this point? But, like, do you think that catches up with them at some point, just the talent differential?
Well, possibly. Ravi, I think a lot of it is just about, like, how, regardless where you played previously and where you're playing now, it's about where you're playing now in the league in which you are in. And I think the answer to your question will come in November at some point in time. Do those guys that were at James Madison, can they play, I hate to call it big boy football because the Big Ten's a little different now, but can they play in the cold, in the wind, with run-specific offenses just coming right at you downhill late in the season when everybody is banged up? So as of right now, and it's been warm so far, and, a lot of the teams that Indiana has played, they'll spread the ball around, but it's going to change for the Hoosiers. So in the case of Indiana, I don't know that we really have an answer to that at the moment, but I think we will come mid-November.
That's Kevin Sjuts, our friend from 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, we appreciate your time as always, and enjoy not being on a bye this week.
Hey, it's all good with us.
Appreciate it, Kev.
That's Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. I don't know why this came up in my head here.
Because it's all in my head.
All right, Tim McGraw.
Nelly.
Yeah,
Tim McGraw.
I feel like you'd be the Tim McGraw of the group.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Because you could see me rocking the cowboy hat.
100%.
Long curly hair.
Yep. That seems like you.
Not a chance.
Seems right up your alley.
Although that's not T-Mac style either.
You seem like a big Tim McGraw guy. I mean, you big like Jelly Roll guy. They're kind of the same, little country.
I only talk to God when I need a favor.
What favor do you need right now?
I need for you to shut the heck up.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make for an awkward show, but whatever you need, bud.
Why aren't you talking? I'm still laughing at the irony of BC being recruited because he was white to come to North.
I don't think it was recruited because he was white.
I used to joke all the time. I said, we have charter schools now. They're called magnets.
I like magnets. Find them very attractive.
Yeah. Why do you think Miller North invests in the IB program?
I think it might help him out a little bit with some test scores and attract some new students. And I do know this, though. When I was at Miller North, I think it was less than 10% of a minority population. It's 30 today. You think that's an accident? I don't know. You want to know what random stat I was looking at?
Zone versus man, Rayola.
No, it's worse than that. I'll get to it when we come back. That's DBM Ravi Lulla.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Looking forward to playing on Saturday against a tough opponent. Coach Rule's done a great job, with the football team there, 5-1. Impressive team on tape. Giving up 11 points a game on defense. A veteran outfit. And offensively, big offensive line, big tight ends, play a lot of guys, really skilled receivers, a lot of good running backs, and mega talented young quarterback. So, but as always, it's more about us.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM, Ravi, Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Mega talented quarterback week here at Hurrdat Sports.
You know what's interesting?
What's up?
Shane, what's wrong with the camera? Because this time it's not me doing it intentionally. Is it just the internet?
My camera's good.
Look at me. That's beautiful.
I don't know what's happening. I think that might be your internet.
Damn.
Yeah. Are you plugged in?
Yeah.
No, it's on this side too.
I stay plugged in.
Mine's fine, Shane. I don't know what you guys are doing. See, look at this. Look how nice mine looks.
It looks dirty.
I stay
Look
plugged
how nice mine looks.
It's
in.
dirty.
Nice I look.
Well, look at you with the nice computer over there.
Mine works. I don't know what you guys are doing over here.
Oh, you don't even recognize
I don't think it's an internet thing because we're all on the same internet.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm just,
But still,
You need me to pop out? You need me to pop out and come back in?
But like most things,
yeah,
it's about us.
What about us?
Signetti.
What about us?
I don't know.
You know what I think it's about?
What?
Opportunity.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. That's exactly how I look at it.
You know what's kind of funny? Because we were talking.
It's a great word.
We were talking yesterday. I was talking about different kinds of opportunity, but we were talking yesterday. I think it was yesterday about basketball. About whether or not being good at football was good for basketball schools, right? That's kind of a recruiting avenue that they can go to, bring more money into their school, bring more opportunity into their school, enrich the student experience for everybody at the school, right? If they do that at the college level, do you think they do that at the high school level?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like Miller North was doing okay, right?
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah.
They have good population base. They have good property tax base. They didn't need a lot of help, right? Not as a school. They still went out and got the IB program, right? Why'd they do that? 2005 or 2002-ish is when they brought that in.
I don't know.
to get more students in, right? Yeah. To get more students, get more opportunities, get more money, right? To enrich the overall student experience. They went out and started a program that they could recruit to make the school experience better for everyone. We just talked to Brian Christopherson, Omaha North, magnet school. Why'd he go to he lived out by Burke. He lives out by me, right? He's closer to Miller North than he is to Omaha North. Miller North didn't have a magnet program. Goes down to Omaha North, goes to school there because of opportunity, because they developed a program that they could recruit to. So it's different when...
You know what else that allowed them to do?
What's that?
Recruit certain teachers.
Yes.
That you ordinarily wouldn't get in your building.
100%. Because teachers like opportunity too.
Anyway.
Teachers like having an opportunity to challenge themselves or to do things they normally couldn't do or to teach different types of kids, right?
Hey, Shane. Hey, good to see my man Royce.
So we see it in college, we see it in high school, but all of a sudden when Westside tries to develop a good football program that they can
why you use us
recruit to, or Miller North has a good baseball program that they can recruit to, all of a sudden that's a problem. We're cool with IB, we're cool with band, we're cool with magnet. Opportunities aren't opportunities for kids. And what happens? What happens if Westside's a great academic school, right?
Yeah.
But what happens if you get it?
I didn't hear this when Central was winning 6 basketball championships.
Yeah, nobody cared about competitive balance then. How many times did Benson beat Central in that stretch, huh?
How did Hunter Salas end up at?
Didn't live in my neighborhood, I know that.
Anyway, Shane, so it is blurry for our guys in the stream and gals.
I see that. I'm sorry. We'll have to.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, is that a Sasha thing or is that above her pay? There aren't very.
I don't know. You saw mine. Mine looks clear, right?
No, that's crisp.
I don't know what. Again, this is where the feed's coming from, so I don't know where the disconnect is. Can I
from right earlobe to left earlobe?
You didn't want to be on camera anyway, Damon. So you're not.
No, that's true. You don't have to worry about that.
Are you like zoomed in or something weird, Shane? What's happening here?
I don't even recognize what we're doing.
Good talk.
What's that song? How does that song go? I'm like 4 or 5 seconds from
Wyland?
Wyland.
Rihanna?
People just out here wilding
Paul McCartney?
Wilding out.
I think Kanye's on that song too.
You know, it's amazing how many educators were vibing with me because they know.
Yeah.
They do, man. It isn't. Sports is just the easy target. They know.
Because
even if you benefit from it, they know.
Sports is the thing that we keep a scoreboard on.
I have a question, though.
What's up?
Speaking of scoreboard.
I like scoreboards.
So BC, and it's only Wednesday.
Yep.
BC was the first one of our coverage guys that picked offense first. Did that surprise you? It was crazy to hear him say out loud. But then I thought about it. He said, well, I assume the defense is going to play well. Not that he's right or wrong. But let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
As I grab your arm and you're like, why are you touching me?
It's fine.
Why, when it's us, can what's been the case not continue to be the case in a game?
That's a good question.
No, I'm dead serious.
No, it is a good question.
Because
it happens a lot.
This is the thing.
This happens a lot.
And he doubled down when he said, well, we got good defensive stats too. So our stats don't matter. Theirs do.
Is there any part of you that thinks their defense is better than Nebraska's defense?
No.
Not even a little bit, right?
No.
Not even in the same neighborhood, right?
No. But can we just get to the root of that, though?
Sure.
Is it a fan thing?
Yes.
Because I didn't think – I swear to God, when he said it, I was like, the little – I'm the light bulb that's like in the freezer in your garage. It's the little one. But when it comes on, it's kind of bright. It's not as big as some of the other bulbs, right? Not the one that could light up your backyard. But anyway, so when he said that, I'm like, yeah, man. Like, we always think the other team's stats are going to
hold true
to be portable, but ours aren't.
Yeah. And what's most ironic in this situation is if there's any evidence of one team's stats maybe not being portable, it's definitely Indiana because of the level of competition.
I just felt like,
and I'm not saying that means they're not good, but what I'm saying is if you were looking at stats and you're saying, hey, if something's not going to be true on Saturday that's been true through the first 6 weeks, it would make the most sense that Indiana's are not.
Yeah.
Because their level of competition has been very bad. Where Nebraska's level of competition has been better than that.
Yeah.
So if Nebraska's defense, it would make more sense from a rational, analytical standpoint to say Nebraska's defense is more likely to perform at their level than it is Indiana's defense or offense is going to perform at theirs. But you're right, it is a fan thing because
did you see the look on my face when he said it?
No.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was vibing with putting special teams too.
Yeah. But
I might have been opposite sandwich.
So
I would go defense, special teams, offense.
I'm okay with him putting offense first, but it's not because of Indiana's defense. It's because we've seen less consistency from the offense than we have the defense.
Yeah.
So I'm okay if you want to put Nebraska's offense first, but I think it's independent of Indiana.
Who was my man that just hit me with the stat? Was that Nate?
Yeah, about the PFF passing grades.
I can't scroll back to it. I just remember seeing the
It
name.
was Nate. He said that in against zone defenses, Dylan's 5th in the country in PFF rating with 99.5 and something close to the neighborhood of 44.5 against man. Says he was watching a podcast on YouTube that said IU has run
that was Nate.
man in 20 snaps all year.
Okay.
So over the course of 6 games, they have run 20 snaps of man defense all year.
What I say in the early watch last week.
That they
play a lot of what?
They play a lot of zone, cover 3.
A lot of 3.
Yeah.
2 to rolling into 3.
Yep.
And they keep everything in front.
Mm-hmm.
And I went one step further because I'm vibing. Can I call him Nate he goes by Nathan? Can I say Nate?
You can go Nate, I think.
I feel bad if he's a Nathan.
Nate the Great.
Well, we'll see if he's great. That's a good little post.
It's nice little. So far, so good.
All right, so Nate the good.
Nate the not bad so far.
It's too many words. So let's say he's on to something because I can't stand PFF grades, but
right.
I do think Nate is definitely on to something.
And I think those grades reflect what our eyeballs have told us.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ride with Nate the pretty good so far. Nathan.
Nate not so bad.
Stop it. I think one of the things I'm hoping, and I don't know if it'll be this year. I don't. But one of the things I'm hoping is the less we harp on, like not taking care of the football will always be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never going to go away. But the openness about make sure we protect the football. It's the way we can win. When we get out of if we don't make as many mistakes, we can win versus actually just going out and playing free and not making mistakes. Because I do think those are two different things.
Yeah.
Right now, we still hear
the priority was on don't make the mistakes.
Yeah. Even though I do want you to play free though, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but at some point that's going to shift to
we're just going to play free, and what happens.
And it's been ingrained in us that we're not going to make the mistakes.
So I think you'll see. Who called him Young Dylan? Was it BC?
That was BC. Young Dylan.
If Young Dylan, I don't think he like call it that. If Young Dylan Raiola gets to the point where he's like, you know what, we've won now. We can kind of evolve. I'm gonna take this up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
I may take some chances because I do think, and we talked about this last week. He's very good with those area throws. He anticipates really, really well,
and he knows where the holes are
going
to be.
Left, because he can read coverage. I don't think he's
and he can layer those throws in his own too.
Letter rippy against man to man. Even though the conventional wisdom is you'd probably prefer to throw against man to man because it's just winning.
Yeah.
But
if your guy wins the matchup,
they almost never look as open. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So you get a little reluctant throwing against man beaters. He'll start to let that rip, I hope. Hopefully this year.
We'll talk to Cynthia Frelund coming up next. Get a little NFL in your life this morning. That's DBM Ravi Lulla, Hurrdat Sports Radio, coming up next.
will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
As CJ is between the eyes, fakes the give, throws to the end zone, hits Stephon Diggs, touchdown Houston. A bullet to Stephon.
Hurts again on the gun. He's back. He's looking. He fires. Wide open. Smith. 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Devontae Smith.
Jared takes, tosses to Montgomery, flips it back to Amon-Ra. He gives it to Goff, who's going to throw downfield. He's got Laporta, makes the grab. 20, 15, 10, 5, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. How about a little razzle-dazzle in the Lone Star State?
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. That was our producer, Shane Schillerberg's pandering to our next guest, Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network with the Detroit Lions clip. Cynthia, how are you this morning?
I mean, it works every time. You know, I love it. Thank you. It works every time, you know?
Cynthia, I'm going to start again. We're going to stay in your wheelhouse here. You're one of the analytics queens, right? You understand numbers and trends, and we're starting to see it a lot more in college football as well. But even for as much data as you've accrued, do you ever think sometimes just take the points?
You know, that's like the misnomer, right? It's not always that you should just go for it and not take the field goal, not take the points, as you're saying. it's really about like making a decision and just having analytics be a little bit more helpful with you making a decision given the circumstances. It's just more data. It doesn't tell you what to do. Like it's a good point that you bring up, but it's not always more advantageous not to take the point.
Cynthia, I wanted to get into the big news we had yesterday with a couple of trades with wide receivers, more impactful to their respective teams, Davante Adams to the Jets or Amari Cooper to the Bills?
Well, I think for different reasons, each one is impactful. So Amari Cooper, I mean, it's basically a song they acquired him for. So for the return on investment, that was absolutely insane. But making Aaron Rodgers happy factor, I think that can't be underestimated at all. So, while Amari Cooper is maybe more of like a good football move from the standpoint of what you have to give up, et cetera, I mean, making Aaron Rodgers happy, you've seen him love Davante Adams for, many, many years. So that's going to be a nice reunion. Maybe just making Aaron happy. He likes to pretend he didn't have a lot of sway in terms of management, but maybe he really did.
I promised myself I wasn't going to talk to you about quarterbacks, but I have to ask about quarterbacks. Can this other than a deep playoff run with as much control as Rodgers has seemed to have over this franchise, can the fan base, like it's win a ton or bust, right? This can't end well for this fan base and Aaron Rodgers relationship without some signature. They're going to have to win a ton because it seems like, and it's a weird fan base to do this with, he has an awful lot of control.
Yeah, every organization is run so differently. So this one, we're starting to see areas where they're willing to cede control and where they're not. And, this is a fan base they were so excited ahead of last season and so disappointed with the Achilles injury after 4 snaps. And now it feels like that just added such a level of make it or else. This whole thing is a bust. It really, I actually, unfortunately, because it's an injury, but I think that did add to everything we're seeing. And then now it just feels so tense, and that tension is rubbing off into just, the fan base is being like, okay, well, put your money where your mouth is. Like, let's see it.
Cynthia, I asked this question, I think of DB earlier in the week, but in that division, you're probably not getting more than one playoff team, I wouldn't think. Like, how are you looking at the chances of the Jets to actually overtake the Bills in the AFC East?
That's going to be a tall task for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is, I will say, the 7 teams being in the playoff does help because now you have that extra slot. And if you look at if you think about the AFC this year, there's so many teams like there's, some elite teams, and then there's like a big gap, and then there's some bad teams. Like the middle class, if you will, of the AFC is not so great. So I think that does actually help the Jets' chances of making the playoffs. Just because, think about it, the South, who's going other than the Texans? No one, right? Then you have the West, like maybe the Chargers sneak in, I guess, right? Like, but when you think of the Chargers, are you like, yeah, that's a playoff team? Because I don't know, right? So just because of that, it would seem that the North is a tough division, but the Bengals are not performing. So it's to me, I think they might sneak in because there's no middle class of the AFC.
Okay, so Cynthia, let me ask you this. I'm glad you brought up the Bengals because both 2 and 4, would you more likely bet on the Jets being able to sneak in or the Bengals?
Somehow the Jets are favored over the Steelers, Cynthia. I'm cringing over that.
This is a game the Jets win. You know what I mean? We've seen this before. Like, I'm not saying what I want or what I there are some things now. You have the defense, like the Pittsburgh Steelers are making some weird moves themselves. If it weren't for Davante Adams and all the trades yesterday, we would be talking way more about Russell Wilson now being the starter. Why? What are you doing? Right? Like these are some interesting questions that the Steelers are posing as well, but it gets kind of brushed under the rug because of the other bigger, splashier things. But look, I think unfortunately, I think I'd have to take the Jets in that situation just because I think their division is so down. Remember, they still get to play the Patriots and they still get to play the Dolphins. So that makes it a little bit easier. Whereas the Bengals, they're in do you want to play the Ravens? Because I don't. Maybe the Browns, sure. But the Ravens, no. The Steelers, no. So it's just a more difficult, they just have a more difficult situation that they're in as opposed to the Jets, which is a little easier.
All right, I'm going to get off the quarterbacks, but I have to use it in the question. Which of these three games, Cynthia, is least about quarterback play? Lions-Vikings, Chiefs-Niners, or Jets-Steelers?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would probably say, look, only because, the Aiden Hutchinson news is so damning that I think that game is very much changed, and the quality of both teams are going to have to run the football. Aaron Jones, the fact that yesterday we saw Cam Akers return back to the Vikings means probably not going to see Aaron Jones. Just reading the tea leaves here, right? Maybe we do, but
he didn't look great at the tail end on the sidelines.
That's right. So again, my point is the run game for them has been a stabilizing force that's helped Sam Darnold escape pressure. And Aaron Jones is a big part of that. I don't know if you can plug and play someone else in there, even someone with experience with the head coach. So I think both defenses really dictate the tone of this game. The Lions O-line is excellent. Is the blitzing, pressure happy Vikings defense going to be able to get pressure on Jared Goff or not? Because if the Lions can run, the Vikings will have a hard time of beating them. But on the other side of the ball, if there's no pressure on Sam Darnold, they'll just pass all over the line. So I think that of those three games, I would think it's probably that third one.
Cynthia, my co-host here, doesn't like asking about quarterbacks. I love asking about quarterbacks. So I'm gonna go back here for a second, because he brought up Minnesota and Sam Darnold, and I'm curious if there is anything you saw in the data or analytics, because there's been a little bit of a revival of some of these quarterbacks that we kind of left for dead a little bit, whether it's like Baker Mayfield last year, or whether it's Justin Fields, which we mentioned with that weird Pittsburgh situation. I don't know what the Steelers are doing. Whether it's Sam Darnold. Like, we've seen a few guys, even, Joe Flacco a little bit last year, a little bit this year.
You could throw Goff in a little bit.
Yeah, and Goff from, a couple years ago now. But there's these guys that we left for dead that all of a sudden appear to be able to play quarterback again. Have you noticed any trends, or is that something you've looked at all to kind of see if there's any commonalities there?
Geno Smith, maybe?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the structure of their offense being able to support the things that they do well and minimize the things that they do bad, right? So do poorly. That's bad English. With Sam Darnold, I bring up the fact. He's gotten to operate from a clean pocket at the highest rate of his career so far.
Yeah.
And it's not like Sam Darnold wasn't a good passer. It's just that Sam Darnold under pressure eroded in a different way than his team was able to support. Right, everyone is worse under pressure. That's why we call it pressure. That's why you do it. And the things that he does that were not helpful with his skill set are now minimized on a team that has answers and has checkdowns that make sense to him. And by the way, has probably the best receiver in the league. That always helps, right? Commanding double, triple coverage for Justin Jefferson, and then giving all the space that Jordan Addison, et cetera, and now maybe T.J. Hawkinson will be back. Like, there's a lot of options for him in this offense, and that really helps. And then some of these other guys, that was the same kind of general message for Jared Goff: clean pocket, lots of options in the pass game, and really rely on a strong foundation of run. Great, same kind of thing. Baker had it a little differently because the Bucs they haven't proven to us that they're reliable runners. They're a reliable running team, but they had a lot of answers with top tier receivers. So it's just supporting what this team or what this player does really well with the teammates and the kind of production that helps accentuate their positives and minimize their defenses or their deficiencies.
I get it. This one's in Lambeau, and I'm going to give you credit because I remember when you said this in the preseason. I was asking you about some darlings, and you told me to be us to be leery of kind of doing this through free agency in year two and the development of the Texans. And I say all that to say their expected points outcome says that they should not be 5-1. Jordan Love has the most touchdown passes per game of any quarterback in the NFL at 2.7. When you watch this matchup, which kind of one of those trends, in your opinion, plays out as you look at this game?
Unsexy to say, but it's really going to come down to who can more reliably run the football. Texans bring the most heat in the entire league. They're the number one pressure front. They have two guys who have over 25 pressures. They're the only team that has that kind of front. And Jordan Love, he has the biggest decrease under pressure of any quarterback in the league. So
Incredible.
that has a relevant number of passes. Right?
You just had that in the old repertoire?
Exactly. So, the interesting part here is and we know that, we've seen Josh Jacobs now become extremely efficient. First 3 games, it wasn't as efficient. Now he's really stepping up and becoming this reliable yards after contact rusher. And then on the same side, when Joe Mixon's healthy, 2 100-yard games and a touchdown in each one. It's just who can run, who can establish the run and control the clock. That's going to be who wins the game.
We're talking with Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network. Cynthia, obviously one of the major stories this year is Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels off to a great start. How much pressure has that put on? So we saw Jerry Jones kind of act a little crazy yesterday with his talk radio show in Dallas. Obviously, there's been a ton of tension with Philadelphia and Nick Sirianni. How much of that is happening in a vacuum, and how much of that is happening as a result of the fact that they're now looking up to the Commanders in the standings?
I think when Jerry Jones doesn't care. I don't know about I don't think he doesn't care. I don't think I think he's interested in it for the week that they play each other and whatever, but I don't think he's not looking at anyone else. If he doesn't have 17 wins, something's wrong, right? And there's more wrong than that this year. But in general, Jerry is his own man, right? When it comes to the Nick Sirianni's, there is a disconnect there. Maybe we'll hear about it at some point. Something's really weird. I don't know what it is, but I will say that this is a division right now where I actually think the Giants are kind of underrated given their they're a really good bad team. You know what I mean? They're of the bad teams. They're a much better bad team than it seems from their record. But I think it's more that all of these teams have Super Bowl expectations. The Cowboys and the Eagles have Super Bowl expectations ahead of this season. The Cowboys, whether or not it's rational, they have Super Bowl expectations every single season. So when you get to week 6, week 7, and things aren't looking good, this is on repeat. This script, I feel like I've seen this before. I've seen it last year, the year before, et cetera. So this is it feels par for the course from the Cowboys for me.
So you're going to tell me 2 things can be true at once, or it is what it is. If I told you that I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC, and I understand their playoff struggles, and I also understand that the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, and they're undefeated.
Yeah, right now, the problem is if the playoffs were to start today, it would be very hard to beat the Ravens. The problem is it's a long season, and in a one-game sample set in the playoffs, it's very hard when your defense is struggling. Patrick Mahomes has more success now when his defense is really good, even though some pieces of the offense are very questionable. So now you have in a one-game sample size, you're much better off if you have your elite quarterback. Let's just say, because both teams are exceptionally elite. They operate differently, but they're still elite. I just think the defense will make a difference in this. And the Ravens defense has not proven to me this season that they're reliable or as reliable as we've seen from the Chiefs so far.
Cynthia, I'm a 49ers fan here, so I'm going to indulge myself a little bit. As you've seen them kind of regress, whether it's from injuries or age or whatever, how do you view kind of their window to be a top contender? Do you still think that thing is open, or you think that thing's getting cranked shut on us a little bit here?
This year I think it's fine, and I'm actually not so worried about them this year. Again, long season. I will be curious to see. We need at least one running back to be healthy for me to feel confident about that.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
It would help. It would be nice. Next man up really does work for Kyle Shanahan, but at some point you just you don't have a man, so then what, right? But I think that this year they're okay. My fear is, we're talking if it's not this year or next year, it's just going to get really expensive really quick. So that's I'm more worried about their, you got to pay. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. There's just some things coming. The salary cap, the relief you get from a rookie, especially a rookie who was, such a low draft pick, that doesn't last forever, especially when you're going to have to pay him.
Cynthia, I get it. Tomlin as a home underdog, and he usually fares well. Again, I told you I was shocked that the Jets are favored. That's okay. Can Tomlin's culture, is that what we're banking on, where he can invite something this week as far as saying, hey, Russ is getting reps with the first team, could potentially start, what have you. This is an organization that can take on that distraction, considering we've been talking about this quarterback situation with them since the offseason?
If there is one, it's there. But I just don't know if I think that's sustainable for anyone. Like, I think that Russell feels like a tough sell. I mean, last year it just feels weird to come into a situation, even though he's not, they're not paying him. The Broncos are. It doesn't matter at this point. He's still it felt like every report early in the season was like they have to say Russell's a starter. They have to, it felt very weird. Like there was a weirdness there that felt like ego. And I'm not sure if this is ego or real or what. Then we don't know what's going on in here, and we'll never hear because it's Tomlin. But something is weird. That's my really deep analysis. It's weird, but I think if any culture can sustain it, it is his. He is the only one who I think the players would give that kind of leash to. Maybe Andy Reid, him and Andy Reid. That's better.
I just want when they drop back for a pass, I just want the ball delivered on time, and to not always check and see if there was a flag because they hold the ball for about 55 seconds. Like is that
you're asking too much, DB.
Is that's doable though? Every play they have, I'm like, is there a flag?
I know. Well, it's funny. But watch the Texans. The Texans in the Green Bay game could be the flag leader of the year this year. Those teams, I'm like, come on.
You know what's interesting about them is for Green Bay, I noticed that for sure because even in Malik Willis's first start, it was on national television, and I can't remember who they hammered. It was his first start, and their first 5 or 6 plays seemed like they averaged about 9 or 10 yards. There was a flag on every other play, and they still drove down and scored. I'm thinking either LaFleur is a genius or this team is something else. But it is crazy how good Green Bay is offensively, and they can't keep from having penalties.
Yeah, I don't know. At some point, your coach can't outcoach that many penalties. Like you can only be in 1st and 20 so many times before you run out of plays in the playbook. This is the way it goes.
Panic mode in Cincinnati?
I say no because I don't know. Like I feel like they don't. Yes, but also no. They're not a team where we don't get that Jerry Jones swing of emotions. Mm-hmm. So it may not be great, but it's not like. I wouldn't say full. It's like, oh crap, not like hit the eject button yet.
Do you eat the money in Cleveland and make a decision at quarterback?
I do. I eat the money. You eat it. I mean, I think that's what it looks like. They're taking their medicine. This is just it's unsustainable.
Cynthia, speaking of eating the money, right? So you mentioned Russell Wilson. Denver had to eat the money with Russell Wilson. We've obviously seen this disaster clown show in Cleveland. We've seen for different reasons a guy that just got paid in Tua in Miami, and they're not able to get their money's worth out of that contract right now. We've, to a much lesser extent, seen Jalen get paid in Philadelphia, and now he's having a conflict with his head coach. Like at some point, and then you mentioned Brock Purdy's going to have to get paid. Like at some point, do we see any correction in the market where we're like, hey, maybe we shouldn't pay every single one of these guys $40 or $50 million a year? Or is it just we're so terrified of not having a quarterback, we'll even pay the mediocre ones?
My dogs have a lot of thoughts on this. I think what we see is a little bit of a what's the word? Like the guarantees will be less. Like we won't see the type of guarantees we saw even for Kirk Cousins. Obviously Deshaun having the most guaranteed contracts, but what I do think is the rookie pay scale was an attempt to not have this happen, and now people are just like delaying their bad decisions for later. But at some point, like, you have to take responsibility for your decisions. So while we won't see as much guaranteed money, I think people are like, well, we're gonna have to figure it out one way or another. And I just don't know if we see like rocket ship hockey stick explosion still, but I still think this is going to be the state of the league until the dynamics of how contracts are created change.
Game of the week: Texans and Packers, or Niners and Chiefs? Or do you have another one? Lions Vikings maybe?
No, not that one. That one was up. Honestly, I'm just glad they're not in the same window so we can like watch them all. My only reason for saying, and I know you're a Niners fan, and I don't mean to offend you. I'm just curious to see if these young quarterbacks who are actually, it's weird because they're playing the exact same number of games. I'm interested to see how they play out. No offense to Chiefs or to Niners. I've seen that game quite a few times, and it's a great game. But I'm more excited to see these new guys. Like, what we never get to see the Packers play the Texans. We just never see it. It's only happened. This is the sixth time it's happened since the Texans have become a franchise. And now you've had C.J. Stroud and Jordan Love playing the exact same number of games. This is like the future of the league. I think that one's a little bit more like, interesting. Let's see what happens. I already know that Patrick Mahomes is capital E elite. I already know that the Niners are epic. I already know that this is a probable Super Bowl, preview. But okay, what about the one that I have no idea about?
Well, Cynthia, nobody bats 1,000. You were doing great until the end there. No, we appreciate your time as always. Great stuff, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye, guys.
That's Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network.
Just the stats. Readily available.
Right off the dome. Yeah. She makes you look like you forget things. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DBM Ravi Lulla, and we're brought to you by our friends at Union Omaha. Just one more regular season match left on the Union Omaha schedule. Make sure you get to unionomaha.com to get your tickets for October 26th. It's the last one. Don't miss it. It's Fan Appreciation Night. Get to unionomaha.com for tickets and more info. DB.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good.
You know what time it is?
Warhorse time.
It is Warhorse time. It's time to bet on it. Brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. DB, you know what random stat I was looking at earlier?
A lot.
I was looking at
kind
one.
of a random stat guy.
You're never going to guess this one.
Your random stat was...
I mean, I would bet... I would bet anything that you will not get this.
I know what it was.
What's that?
It was all games in which Walker Buehler and Severino went head-to-head, one another, tied 1-1 in NLDS.
You got the sport right.
In NLCS, I'm sorry.
And the league right. This is a National League baseball stat.
Dang, it's not that specific. What were my odds of being wrong?
It's pretty specific, but
I thought that was a great one.
It was a good guess, but it's even more random.
Wow. What was it?
I was looking up Ozzie Smith stats.
Why?
I don't know.
I used to want to be Ozzie Smith. I had a neighbor that was Ozzie Smith.
Yeah?
Except he was white. Brian Vecchio.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Little guy, slick fielder. He could do anything with a glove.
If you had to guess what Ozzie Smith's career slugging percentage was, what would you say?
390.
You're too high.
That's incredible. A real life punching Judy?
Let me check here.
Why, Ravi?
He did not crack 390 slugging percentage his entire career.
Why?
Not a single time.
Why?
In his entire career. Why was I looking this up?
Yeah.
I
didn't really start hitting the baseball till later in his career.
He never really hit the baseball that much. Now his average got better.
Yeah.
But never hit for any.
Used to be my guy.
Never hit for any power.
Used to be my guy.
His highest slugging percentage in his career was, he did crack it once, 392. Or no, that was on base. 383 was his best slugging percentage ever. 383.
In 1983.
87. In his runner-up MVP campaign.
Yeah.
He
He actually got to a point where I didn't think he was an automatic out all the time.
He was a .328 career slugging percentage.
Back then, nobody cared if your shortstops could hit.
I know.
I mean, I watched Gary Templeton pick it and couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. Which, by the way, coincidentally, they were traded for one another.
His OPS was .666 for his career.
Oh, that's an ugly number.
Both for a couple reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was looking. Oh, you know what it was? I saw a TikTok video of his defensive highlights.
Yes.
And I was trying to remember just how bad of a hitter he was.
So for analytics people, you think Ozzie Smith's defensive prowess would hold up?
I'm curious what his defensive WAR is. I don't have that right in front of me. Let me see if I can look. Because that's going to be your equalizer, right? Because he's obviously not providing much offensively. Let's see if we've got some advanced fielding stats in here. Come on, Baseball Reference, don't let me down.
Yes.
We do not have advanced fielding here.
That's
I might
okay.
have to go to Fangraphs or something.
Oh, that's fine.
But yeah, I 328 career slugging percentage.
It's not very good.
It's really, really bad.
You'd have a hard time. I mean, that's no Lindor.
You'd have a hard time.
That would get you 0 burn in Baltimore.
Yeah, you'd have a hard time.
Because I grew up in the era, you were either a Ripken guy or you were an Ozzie guy.
Yeah.
Later on, it was Nomar, but he didn't play long enough.
No, we did love Nomar, though.
And then on the tail end of that was Toot Toot Hey Jeet Jeets.
I was a big Nomar guy.
Until A-Rod, he forced A-Rod to move.
Garcia Parra, the batting gloves.
Yeah.
Do the whole thing.
I remember that.
People thought he was going to hit 400 one year.
Yeah, I was a big Mia Hamm fan. To heck with Nomar.
North Carolina.
And Mia Hamm.
She went to North Carolina.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
Wasn't why I liked her.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just keeping it in the Tar Heel family.
No.
Big soccer guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially then.
Yeah. Back in the day?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Very competitive. All those great soccer players that played for the U.S. national team I had probably seen.
Yeah, late 90s?
Play in college.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Nebraska was very, very good at soccer.
I recall.
Yeah.
A little bit. Not as much as you.
I mean, you're still wearing Pampers.
No, not in the late 90s.
I mean, pretty much.
I was wearing like...
Were you a Huggies guy? Loves?
I was not wearing diapers in the late 90s.
I know that.
I was in my preteen years in the late 90s.
Uh-oh.
I was in middle school.
You know what happens with pre?
Teen?
Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
Preview?
Yes.
You're going to preview Nebraska and Indiana later with our friend Avery.
Miss Howard?
Yeah. Getting after it a little bit. Get after the preview.
Yeah.
After a week off, you feel good?
There's a lot of so this week for Nebraska, it's a lot of do I believe the data? You know,
or taking data in context.
Yeah.
That's why I asked Brian that question, right?
No, it was really, yeah. I was actually paying attention.
Because the data can be real, but the context can mean it's not going to continue, right?
Are they who? I just listened to Coach Rule rattle them off. Shane, did you play that? You have that bite queued up for me?
Which one?
Coach Rule. The one that we just literally talked about 6 minutes ago.
Yeah, I have it queued up.
Okay, why couldn't you just answer the goddamn question?
Because I didn't have it queued up at the time.
You were buying yourself time?
I was buying some time. That's what I do.
Go ahead.
You finally get that.
Go ahead and play that thing anytime now, Shane.
Hey, so play this clip. Play that clip, Shane.
Like, you know, that's him. Like, he's here first thing in the morning.
Fall asleep in your office?
Yeah, I went home and then couldn't sleep, so came back early. And, you know, the Garrett McGuires, the Corey, they come in at 4:30 and work out. I come in at 4:30 and watch film and just fell asleep. That's all.
Coach Rule said you woke him up in his office last week by knocking on the door. What time do you have to get to the facility to do that?
Oh, he slept here, so he probably slept in a little more than he wanted to, but somewhere around I don't even remember. I walk in here and just walk in. You know, I don't look at the clocks. I almost hit his head because he slept by the door, and I knocked, and I opened the door, and I like hit something, and he was on the ground. So I was like, oh, I just knocked his head.
Does that give you a glimpse into the magnitude of this game or how they are just approach getting better?
Yeah, I took it more about how they approach things. I didn't really think this was an Indiana-specific thing. I just took that as like, Yep, I think Dylan and Coach Rule are wired about the same way.
So I pit that against like preparation and emotion.
Yeah.
Versus the numbers.
Well,
it's difficult this week for me.
You know what people say about preparation, right? Is it helps for a lot of people. It helps take the emotion out of the situation, right? The more prepared you are, the less emotionally volatile a lot of people will be in those situations.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
I mean, it doesn't always work for me.
Sure.
I felt like we were extremely prepared last week, and I was still very emotional.
Sure. Different kind of emotion, though, right? You're going to have a different emotion if you're unprepared versus prepared.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
More positive emotions when you're prepared.
Correct.
You feel ready.
Correct.
You feel ready to get after it. Doesn't mean it takes emotion, but I think it takes negative emotion out of the equation.
Like I look at Indiana's defense, and at no point do I think that defense is better than Nebraska. Statistically, they are, though.
Maybe I'm being a jerk. Their defense doesn't scare me.
No, that's not like it is. I'm not even taking it to that extreme. Like
I
how it makes me feel. I'm just saying. So when I look at data, which I, as you know, often do.
Yep.
I always have to pit it against what I see. So when I'm trying to cap this game, which is where the original conversation started for the Warhorse segment, I don't see 6.5.
Yeah. I don't either.
I don't. But
I don't either.
But do you know why 6.5 could happen?
Why?
Because you can't compartmentalize emotions and preparation. If it was just about looking at what I see, it would be much easier. But what I tell you last week, you told me about a line, and I said, or the matchup, and I go, Vegas has already figured out the matchup. It's our job to play the line.
Yeah.
Right? So they're letting you now. When it opened at whatever it was, 3.5. I think that's how they felt. They're like, oh, Indiana,
about 3.5,
about 3.5 points better.
Yeah,
where it is, the hype, undefeated. We've seen Nebraska in this spot before. Historically, not very good.
So you're giving Indiana probably 2.5 for home, and then another point for Nebraska's history.
The money has moved it some,
right? Because of the public.
So that's where I am with breaking it down when it comes to talking to Avery in a little bit. It's like not necessarily the ATS. Are they who the numbers say they are? And how do I pit this against Nebraska's preparation?
That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Make sure you get out to the casino here in Omaha every Saturday this month. They're giving away $10,000 to one lucky winner, as well as a bunch of free slot play. Get to warhorse.com for details. We'll wrap up the show. Coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Every game's big to us, actually. So we just take it 1-0 every week. So the next one is Indiana, and basically we're just trying to beat ourselves. It's us versus us. So if we do what we can do and do what we usually do, everything's going to be fine.
Wrapping up hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln. We're brought to you by our friends at Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved, donate, volunteer, see what events are coming up, and see all the projects they've been working on as they've raised over $13 million in the last 12 years. That's teamjackfoundation.org. DB,
what up?
I wanted to get into something that we kind of mentioned a little bit with Cynthia about Nick Sirianni being a little crazy. But there was another coach this weekend that was acting a fool that we haven't really got to yet. And that's our guy Kirby Smart down in Georgia. And I'm going to be honest with you, man. I watched this about 100 times, the clip of him pushing the Mississippi State quarterback. Because the first time I saw it, I thought nothing burger. First time I was like, nah, guy ran into him. He pushed him back. Not a great look, kind of a nothing burger. And then I saw it again like a day later. The Mississippi State quarterback didn't run into him. Kirby Smart went and got the Mississippi State quarterback.
Yeah, he walked towards him.
He was a few yards off of where the Mississippi State quarterback was. He went out of his way to go to him and then push him. And I'm trying to figure out,
are you saying should in those steps should he not have seen what he saw with his players or what?
I'm saying in those steps, did he not think that, hey, maybe I shouldn't push an opposing player? Or how did you see it?
It doesn't matter. This is your opinion.
Well, no, because I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, in that 3 yards or whatever it was between him getting over here and losing the headset and the visor and whatever, and then making contact with the opposing player, like, was there?
I still think it's a nothing burger.
Okay, because I'm thinking, is there no point at which he goes, hey, maybe this is a bad idea?
Well, so maybe a little further walk, or maybe if it was like, I think context matters for why he did what he did. Now, hear my heart. I'm not condoning what he did.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I think the methodology on defending it is the same, whether he took no steps or 3 steps.
Okay.
Because in those 3 steps, he was still bothered by what he saw.
Okay.
That's what I think happened.
Because the reason I made the distinction between the guy basically running into him versus him going and taking the steps to make contact is I can understand in a reaction, guy hits you, you push back, whatever, like instant.
Did the player still hit him?
Nobody hit Kirby.
No. Did what Kirby was upset about still happen?
Yes.
Okay.
But my thing is with Kirby specifically, right? If a guy is running directly at you, I can understand the instinct to just put your hands out and push, right? That's what I thought happened originally when I watched the video.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the other stuff going on with his players. I get that. But when I see a head coach go walk over to another player and then still decide to make contact, the reason I make the differentiation there is because of the time you have to process your action. That, to me, is what took it from nothing burger to kind of what's happening here.
Yeah, I still think it's a nothing burger.
Still nothing burger?
Yeah.
Is that why it hasn't been talked about?
Yeah.
Very much?
Because so stuff like that happens all the time.
Okay.
Right? You ever seen players run into the sidelines and coaches are like, they'll pull a player or another player will send another player away from their bench or whatever.
Sure.
I think in this particular case, Kirby was defending
Didn't like what he saw.
something he saw.
Okay.
So I think would he do that again if he was defending something he saw in that same 3-step sequence? I think the answer is yes.
You don't think you would just yell at him? Because we see opposing coaches kind of jaw at players a lot.
So we're afforded the luxury of going back and re-examining it.
Yeah.
I think if you said, hey, Kirby, the exact same thing happened the exact same way, would you do the exact same thing? And I think he would say yes.
Does that make him right?
No.
Okay.
But it doesn't make him wrong either.
Okay. Not in and of itself.
Because the scenario I'm painting is not to defend the action. I'm telling you why I think he did it.
Okay, that's fair. The action can be right or wrong either way.
Yeah, I'm just telling you. So when you ask people those kinds of questions, even in the moment, sometimes it's not about the outcome. It's about doing what they felt like doing in the moment. But they always think about the outcome later. If we were afforded the luxury of thinking about the outcome or the byproduct en route to doing something, do you know how many times we would change our course of action?
So maybe that's where I'm struggling because, and this is honestly probably a byproduct of anxiety, I do think about the outcome in real time. That's one of the first things I think about.
Well, a lot of times that's what associates or differentiates rational versus irrational.
Sure.
Is processing and critical thinking. Like, I don't do everything I want to do real time.
Because you're processing the outcomes.
Yeah. Sometimes or that's not always true.
Okay.
I'm be honest. Okay. No. It's not, because if it's something down the road that I'm thinking about doing, like getting rid of a body or something like that, I'm like, oh shoot, that could have ramifications.
Sure. Getting rid of a body typically does have ramifications.
But if it's sometimes things just feel wrong.
Sure.
So that
it's like an instinct.
Yeah, it's like, ugh.
So I think maybe that's part of
But I can know things are wrong, and I do
and you
them
do it anyway. Okay, because that's fair. Because my sort of
does that, you know what I mean?
No, I do. Because my sort of initial reaction is like, I think it is an instinct thing where I go,
I'm just honest.
At some point, did Kirby Smart's instincts not tell him don't push that player?
No, because he was relying on instincts. He did push the player,
which is fair. I think I just don't understand that instinct.
You would. I'm telling you.
I mean, listen, I've wanted to do some things I haven't done.
So you haven't nobody's ever flown into the bench in your lap and you pushed him back onto the court?
I usually grab him. I'd usually try and stop.
I don't know.
I'm not. And listen, basketball sidelines, football sidelines, very different.
Well, they're extreme. Well, one place they're alike is they're extremely close together.
They are very close. They're close to the playing field. They're close, but typically you don't have the same number. Like, you have guys running onto the sidelines in football constantly. Mm-hmm. It's not super common in basketball, right? Where you have guys just mostly. I'm trying to make sure the guy whoever's coming at me is not going to hurt himself. And he's not going to hurt one of my players that he lands on. Those are basically the only things that ever crossed my mind.
Yeah, I still think it.
Now, there's been guys that I wouldn't have mind putting hands on for other situations because they're doing something on the floor that I don't love, but I'm not afforded the opportunity to know whether or not I would actually do something if they came that way.
You never think of yourself there in that situation? I mean, if you're there on the sideline, let's say if you're a coach or if you're doing play-by-play, you don't think of yourself like, am I going to get hurt when this guy comes
I mean, I always dealt with basketball players, and basketball players are skinny, so I wasn't really worried about that. I wasn't really
but I mean,
worried.
physics is physics.
No, I know.
mean, moving objects. I mean, I could drop a raisin off a bridge, and it would still hurt you.
Yeah, it reached terminal velocity.
Just say it. So
I'm not saying my logic is sound, but my logic is like, it's not a big guy. I'm fine.
You don't think that's still a nothing burger to me?
I mean, maybe it is. I thought it became in my mind, it became different when I saw the steps. Like if he is an instinct reacting, just trying to keep a guy off you, that's one thing.
It's not far enough away.
Okay. Is there do you have like a visual number where you're?
This is super warped.
Yeah.
But the way that I'm thinking about this real time, if you want to get inside this dangerous brain of mine.
Always.
I'm like, at how long does it take me to de-escalate something that I want to do
internally?
Head? Yes.
To like talk yourself down?
Yes. Yes.
So more than 3 yards?
I had to do it in like seconds.
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
No, I know. That's why I'm
literally
asking.
Processing in my head.
I know it seems like I'm being semantics.
How long it takes me to de-escalate something that I feel I need to defend.
So if he's 10 yards away and makes that, then maybe you feel
that's probably enough time.
That's too far.
That's probably enough time for me to de-escalate.
But you thought he was close enough.
Because sometimes I could jog over to something that I think is happening.
Yeah.
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 So I don't know. I mean, I had a crazy meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just talking about the ones where I was sober. In Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
This was a handful of years ago. And I thought clearly about what I was doing.
Yeah.
I walked myself through the ramifications, and it didn't matter.
And you just were like, hey, I'm
gonna address this.
You did it anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's and that was over. I mean, Jay was pregnant at the time, and somebody said something they shouldn't have, and she's kind of in harm's way.
Yeah.
And they said it to her.
Sure.
So, yeah, I clearly thought about it.
Right.
And I walked a fair amount of ways.
So is it?
So I don't know if my point in saying all this is the line of demarcation. I'm not sure. Now, if I thought about something over a day and I went back and did it, the legal system would look at that vastly different too.
100%, right?
Right? Like it goes from premeditated to.
So am I missing the point here that Kirby felt like his players were in harm's way?
I think he was at that. No, this is semantics. I think he wanted to defend his player.
Okay. Because to me, those are two different things.
I think he wanted to defend his player.
Because defending your player and thinking they're in harm's way, to me, are different.
And again, just processing through this without condoning the
100%, yeah,
right or wrong.
Obviously,
I'm telling you why I think he did what he did.
Obviously, shouldn't push the player. That's where we're starting.
Nobody really seemed to have had a problem with it.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was wondering.
Because I think people think those things happen, and it happens a lot.
That's fair.
Like it happens a lot.
Am I wrong for making the distinction between somebody in harm's way and just defending somebody?
I think it's kind of nitpicky.
I think it's different. I think I'm making a distinction between protecting and defending. Protecting is like immediate danger. Defending is like I feel like somebody's being done wrong.
And if you asked him, he wouldn't say I was defending my player. You know what he would say?
What's that?
I was protecting my player.
Then maybe that's the difference.
I think that's
maybe him processing in real time is.
And now that people think I'm crazy, there's our psychoanalytical moment.
I mean, I don't know that there's a whole lot of people that listen that didn't think you were crazy before. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back tomorrow on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.